Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the show. It's time for HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. Happy Monday afternoon to you. It is that day, isn't it? I lose track sometimes. I mean, there's so much going on and yet so little at the same time. I think time is an illusion. I sometimes feel like I should just do the show from one of those like gaming pods or flight simulator things where you're just in this like rotating seat with 3 screens in front of you, and I should just sleep here and then just wake up and flip it on and go back to sleep. Hi, everybody. There is an emoji freak out happening on Twitch right now, which I love. On Twitch, you can actually set it to emotes only. Sometimes I don't even have to. Like, they just go for it. YouTube is having a good time. Welcome, everybody, from YouTube. And, of course, Facebook. I've been trying to crack into... They've moved all the pages around. I can't even find how to get to the live producer part that I used to use all the time. I don't know why they don't just leave well enough alone. Like, it's like Facebook or Meta. Meta's like it's like the AI behind autofill took over an entire social media website. Like that's what we're going to find out in a few years. That literally, like at some point, somebody flipped the wrong switch or hooked up the wrong computer to the internet, and literally the autofill. Don't you mean this? Don't you mean this? Aren't you trying to say this? Aren't you trying to say this? Like that AI, like hinge point in the programming took over every aspect, where it's always trying to throw you in front of your assumed problem. You know what I mean? That's what it seems like. They're like, oh, we fixed this for you. It wasn't broken. I knew where it was. Leave it. I feel like I literally, every time I go to Facebook to try and like do something for the show, I feel like my dad, if I borrowed tools from his workshop. You know what I mean? Like the crescent wrench goes there. Like, just leave it. See how there's an outline on the wall where the sunlight from every morning has caught where the hammer is? Leave the fucking hammer, right? Like, literally just. But, meanwhile, autofill is now running the joint. Ugh, God, it's horrifying. Anyway, so I want you to know I am trying. I'm also working on some other backgrounds that are color variants to what you're used to seeing. So if you come in sometime, like I have the Ukrainian flag one for for the other computer, for the travel computer in the morning show and stuff like that. So I'm making one like that for the Saturday show. And then I'm also going to modify the framing so that I have a little more space over here on the screen for the fill-in stuff behind me. I'm messing around with it because that's what I do when I can't solve a problem that I really have. I procrastinate positively. It's proactive procrastination. That's the way I look at it. Can't solve the problem that you need to solve because it's unsolvable? Solve some other problems while you wait. So that's what I'm doing. Hi, welcome everybody. We're at a level 3 hype train already on Twitch, and bless you for that. Thank you, everybody. And of course, super chats. I have no doubt will take off at some point. Once we hit 666 people in the chat on YouTube, that's a good time as any to fire up a $6.66 super chat so that we can buy that building, or at least a hollow out missile silo, or perhaps an unused amusement park. That would be my third choice for the when I build my Graceland / mega church for the show, even though I'm still going to be doing it alone in front of 3 monitors in a very small office, the outside of the place should look insane. That's my theory. Yeah. By the way, if you're bouncing around these sites, you don't know which one to go to, twitch.tv/HalSparks will get you there. And you can subscribe with Amazon Prime, and it doesn't cost you a dime. Look at that. I did all the business up front. Look how professional I am, everybody. Now, we have a lot to cover today. Trump did a whole other speech on Saturday after the one we got halfway through before I got bored and we had to stop because it was just fucking dry as a bone. And they fixed it for him. I guess they had him like guzzle some schnapps or something, and he's basically drunk. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I wanted to show you something right out of the gate. Dinesh D'Souza might be warming to the idea of a quote-unquote lively discussion, not a debate, because he would lose. but with me about 2,000 turds. And my rule about it would have to be that I have to live stream it when it happens, because we've all seen what he does with edited footage. There's no fucking way I'm going to let him, cut together what he thinks my argument is after the fact. Melissa, thank you so much for the super chat and the sticker of the little guy waving fans. So I will say, and again, I guess he mistyped critique versus critic, or he literally just no talk good. And I was glad to make the cut of the Dinesh D'Souza critics that merit a response, even if he's just going to try and manipulate that response and cover his ass by editing out all my quips and all me turning into Ficus at one point during the debate, which must happen. Maybe when Debbie shows up. If Debbie pops her head in, Ficus is definitely going to show up and ask her out. I honestly, I will literally pay you money for you to debate Dinesh. I would love to do it. So he says it's not going to be a debate. It's going to be a lively discussion, which I read as Dunkfest. Meanwhile, when it comes to critics, there are none so happy to be critiqued by certain people as Jimmy Dore, who's, I guess these are the critics that he's exposed. I did not make the cut in this one. I don't think. We'll find out. Maybe I did. Maybe I'm in I haven't seen this, but I do think it's interesting that not only is Jimmy using a picture from when he used to host a game show in the mid 90s. I don't think he did. Who would moderate the lively discussion? Debbie? Yes. But notice they've airbrushed it, even though it's an old picture. That's the amazing part. It's like an old headshot. They've airbrushed. Meanwhile, they take screenshots of these two and slam them to the front of the screen to make Cenk look greasy and make sure you can see any kind of imperfections in Anna's skin. It's a classy move from a classy dude. And normally I would start these because there's always an ad before, and just start whenever the audio starts so that we can join it in progress in these clips. But not today, because I wanted you to see just, this is what passes for a thumbnail in Doreland. Yeah. Well, they picked a Cenk is greasy picture. You know what I mean? I have my issues with the two of these folks, but this is an intentional dick move, and with himself way in the back. Thanks, Sandy. And I missed one too. Thank you, missed one. Okay, let's see what this dipshit's talking about. I also reserve the right to get bored of this one and move on, because this kind of like human centipede of lefty online, alleged lefty. I would say they were genuine lefties, and Jimmy Dore is a Putin stooge. So I don't. You lose your lefty card when you argue that a gymnast who holds up the Azov Battalion flag is now automatically, this 15-year-old girl is automatically a Nazi now. And by the way, deserves to have her town leveled because she's 15 and holding up the wrong flag, according to Jimmy. Anyway, so let's see. This is going to be an ad.
How to kill all mosquitoes in the area in 90 seconds? This simple but brilliant trick you can do tonight to eliminate all
Feed
mosquitoes
them to Jimmy
around
Dore.
you is taking
He lives
America
on mosquitoes. All
so
right, here we go.
This guy puts these videos together.
This guy.
And I learned things from them. He put this together. It's the STFU shitlib on Twitter. I don't know his real name.
Oh, shut the fuck up, shitlib. Is kind of the alleged left-wing version of libtards of TikTok.
His name is Tom, I think.
Well, it's good. I'm glad you checked it out. Does it really? Didn't he? Yeah, he used to run MySpace.
Joe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tom, Joe. It's a 3-letter name. Who gives a fuck? Look, there's two kinds of people in this world: plebes and Jimmy Dore. Everybody else is a plebe. You're lucky. Look, Tom, Joe, whatever the fuck your name is. One of these days, if you try really hard and you apply yourself and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you too can have Jimmy Dore cover your face with one of your own graphics while you sit there like a dickhead on a screen, not able to speak.
Sorry, Joe.
Yeah, whatever.
I don't know his real last name. It's Joe. But
I don't know. I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, see if you can find out. He's friends with Misty. So
That's good to know. He's friends with Misty. So will anybody out there ask Misty?
puts these videos together, and I found out something. By the way, if you enjoy this kind
Thanks,
of
Nails
comedy,
by Sherry. What? And by the way, if you enjoy this kind of comedy, you mean actually he cuts together things to make them funny, unlike what this is.
you should come see us in Las Vegas. We're
Oh my God, he was talking about himself.
there next Thursday and Friday, June 24th and 25th.
Oh yeah.
What did I say? We're there next Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturday, we're in Vegas at the Plaza Hotel. It's a beautiful showroom. We'll see you there. We're doing 2 shows, one Friday, one Saturday.
Okay.
So see you there.
No, probably not. I got a thing with a thing.
Let's see what else. Oh, but here, I want to show you this video. So I
I want to play some comedy for you that I didn't make, so I can still call this a comedy show.
found out.
By the way, thanks you, Jerry, for the coffee. I appreciate that. And Sweet Indigo, thank you so much for the super
I
chat.
didn't even know. I knew that people were pretending that I was a secret right winger. I knew.
They don't pretend. They judge you as either a horseshoe asshole right winger or just bought and paid for. That's a judgment based on your opinions about the lives and deaths of other people.
That, but I never knew that they were trying to pretend that I was telling people to vote for Republicans, which I've never done that.
No, you just want to convince Democrats not to vote and any progressives to not vote for Democrats and to undermine the Democratic vote so that the Republicans could just have those votes or they remain blank. You know. No, I like what the, of course that's what that means.
So, but
Yeah, I just want you to vote for Jill Stein because she sat at a table with Mike Flynn and Vladimir Putin.
so I found out watching this video. So let's watch this video. It's very funny.
That was Jimmy Dore endorsing.
And the reason I play this is for people who like our show and like me.
Yeah, no one likes you, Jimmy. No one likes your show. They watch it because they find a reflexive anger that they share with you. That's totally different. If any of the people show up at your show and they're like, I love him, that's why I wear French cuffs, then maybe.
I need to give them the ammunition to fight back when people smear me, right, and say crazy shit.
Yeah, that's what it's for. Like these people, your followers need ammunition to defend you against smears.
And so this video is one of the things that does it. It shows the people saying that Jimmy Dore, well, you'll see what it does.
That was Jimmy Dore endorsing Donald Trump as the anti-war option if he ends up running for re-election, I guess.
And now someone will clip this like they did last time to make it look like somehow I'm telling people to vote for DeSantis. And which I expect people to do. What I don't expect is for grown-ups to fall for it.
She was saying actually vote for Trump, not DeSantis. I don't know where that one comes. Yeah, it's
Avoided Trump stories like it was the plague during the Trump administration.
First thing we got here. First of all, we have a failure to communicate. This is your party. This is exactly who you guys have been since Nixon. This is the 30 years of the Southern strategy.
Because now your main job is to fillet Republicans all day long. I hope you're having fun.
The Southern strategy, which was invented by Richard Nixon, which was just scary.
Why are they showing old footage of him? That looks like stuff from, well, it's hard to tell, but that looks like stuff when he was still an offshoot show from TYT.
White people about black people to get them to vote for Republicans.
But over the years, his content started to shift. He never criticized Republicans.
I don't criticize Democrats because I favor Republicans. I criticize Democrats because they favor Republicans.
But the reason why Jimmy
Okay, this is supposed to help?
Dore is deceiving his audience is because he wants them to vote Republican.
We have a failure to communicate.
All right, and like even this, like, hey, he's fixing it for me. No, that's exactly how it comes across, dickhead.
Wants them to support Donald Trump if he runs in 2024.
And now you know why you have to stop voting for Republicans and Democrats.
That's lying to your audience on purpose.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, he doesn't, the direct support of Trump is how he gets around it. It's willful ignorance. The whole point is don't vote, because he knows that his audience is primarily left-leaning in theory anyways, or right-wingers that, fap to this nonsense. And so they basically just, get them not to vote, and it guarantees an edge for Republicans. That's exactly the point. This happens all the time.
For money like a whore.
All he did was focus on Democrats.
Now back to Anna.
Nothing has changed because of Trump.
Oh, that was nice. Kurt said, now back to Anna, I guess because of the whore reference.
But now he's going to help you out and just admit,
Like a whore.
yeah, I think that maybe you should consider supporting Republicans.
It's time to start voting third party, no matter what the third party is. You got to stop giving your vote to these two corrupt, murderous parties.
Yeah, but the president.
But the idea that you can,
and again, he's essentially what he believes is talking to progressives, talking to lefties, meaning throw your vote away, don't support the Democrats, and keep the margin thin.
sort of just quantify that Donald Trump was less pro-war than Joe Biden. It's just absurd.
Who pulled us out of Afghanistan? I'm just interested about that question.
I don't know why that's funny.
Which president? Which president?
President Joe Biden.
Again, I don't know why he's laughing at that. On top, well, maybe he says it in this clip, but let's remind everyone that Trump, even since, has said we were going to keep Bagram stay in Afghanistan forever.
Pulling out of Afghanistan while committing billions in funds to troops in Ukraine, Israel, and Somalia. So we're in forever war. It's never stopping. This is a death economy.
That's not the same thing. Committing U.S. troops or supporting places militarily or helping UN troops in support in places like Somalia and the like, not the same thing. I mean, he wants to make the case is basically he's making an isolationist case that until America pulls all of its troops out of everywhere. And again, this is the third party argument on a geopolitical foreign policy level. It's basically telling everyone that, if we just get out of there, by our vacuum will create goodness, as opposed to our vacuum will give room for Russia and China to go in there and just steamroll everyone, which is exactly what they're doing currently.
His whole railing against the duopoly and not voting out of fear, the lesser of two evils, was really just to get a way to get people to not vote for the best shot at getting left-wing proposals enacted.
What?
Yeah, again, why is that weird? I know, I mean, this is just... I think he's just excited that someone cut a video about him.
What the fuck?
I just don't think, what's the worldview?
What the fuck are you fucking on drugs?
Earmuffs.
He's sitting there trying to help the Republican Party in every single way, like a whore, because he loves Trump so much and he thinks he's so anti-war. Like a whore.
You would think it would be 57 progressives voting against it. But that's what I mean about the flip. Now, instead of having 57 progressives vote against war, we have 57 right-wing conservatives vote against war.
I mean, if you think Jimmy Dore...
I think he's using the Ukraine spending or whatever as if they're voting against war as opposed to for Russian interests.
As a leftist at this point, you need to get your head checked too. He wants to sheepdog people into the Republican Party.
Like a whore.
Again, I suppose that he finds that point so ironic, sitting in his $1.4 million house paid for with his Marxist ideals, because he's that left in Los Angeles, by the way.
You still don't think he's a con man? You just want a fake hero. I get it. Everybody wants a hero. I wanted Bernie. Bernie was my hero in 2015, 16. I know what that's like. But you got to face the music when you see who they really are. Bernie has proved over and over again he won't actually cross the establishment. So does Donald Trump.
You're equally disappointed at Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump? Look at that. I thought Donald Trump would have higher standards than that. I mean, I knew Bernie Sanders was a gamble, but I thought for sure Donald Trump would be my man. What?
Oh, so that was a fun video.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun. It was the way they kept going back to the whore thing, and the way Kurt jumped in with calling Anna a whore just apropos of nothing while his face was hidden behind the screen as sort of this misogynistic ghost floating around your garage. Yeah, that was fun. It was a quality moment.
So again, I play that for I enjoy it.
Yeah. Of course you do. You're an egomaniac.
I didn't,
a whore.
I enjoy it like a whore. And but I played it so you people could see how ridiculous.
Oh, that's very sweet. Or you could just put, post the links in the description. But the point is, and get on with it. So, yeah, at least you're not trying to fill time. That's the important thing.
I don't think anybody listens to those people anymore.
I mean, I do think it's interesting that you've got this shade and this shade in the same. Since this is happening now and that's older. I mean, nothing wrong with dyeing your hair. It's cool, but it's kind of interesting that you. Who's the vain asshole in this?
Or really? Well, obviously, the numbers on their videos, that obviously no one watches them anymore.
Yeah, they just don't get the bots like they used to.
But I just think if people hear that, because Kurt, you've told me that you've heard.
Kurt, you've told me how wonderful I am and how other people don't like me and how you've defended me just so you can keep your spot on the show so that I can put your stupid fucking face behind a graphic and then just put it over your face like a prick.
You've heard of other comedians. They're like, oh, I heard Jimmy.
Not as an insult. By the way, not as an insult. Just like, oh, I thought he was right wing. Like, why did you think that?
Because he supports all things right wing and tries to undermine anything, I guess, left of Chavez voting. That's why. Because if you leave it blank, that's a vote that doesn't go up against the Republicans, and life is not a zero-sum game.
Because
that's what
Cenk said it on a thing in a third hand. That's why.
Or they may have seen some of your videos defending Putin's murder and rape of Ukrainians. Because, it's like 9 guys in the Azov battalion in 2014 that, they're in the southwest of the country, southeast of the country. But if you really want to do a good, fine cleaning job, you got to kill all the Ukrainians all the way to the Polish border. You know what I mean?
Because people who vote Democrat.
There you go. All right. Well, because people who vote Democrat, yes,
are pissed off at me that I won't vote Democrat.
Right. They're not pissed off at you. You sell this line to you. Mute the vote. You are basically, your entire show is predicated on one single idea: stop people voting for Democrats. The assumption is because that the favorable audience is going to vote Democratic, if at all, and so you stop them. That's the whole point of the show. There is no other point other than your own ego and little cut clips. That's it. The whole purpose of this show, it's raison d'etre across the board, is stop people voting for Democrats. Period. Which is exactly what the RNC wants. We don't need you to vote for us, but we'd rather you not vote at all. I mean, Jimmy Dore is running the show that Paul Weyrich dreamed of. This is hold on. Let me remind you guys about Paul Weyrich. This is the basis. Here we go. Yeah. This is who Jimmy Dore works for.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
There you go. So that's the root of that is what Jimmy's show is for. It serves no other purpose at all than to guarantee that the people who watch his show and the people that it spreads to, via those people, never vote. Because in theory, unless they're going to, there might be some anarchist style spoilers who will vote for the greater of two evils just because the whole system's got to come down, which he's also convincing to do that in theory, if they aren't already pre-convinced and he just reinforces it. But the ultimate reason, that's the founder of the Heritage Foundation, by the way, that's Paul Weyrich. The purpose of Jimmy's show is to depress the Democratic vote. In that way, he's a perfect offshoot from TYT. TYT just does kind of a hypocritical back end of it. They shit all over the establishment candidates until they get elected, and then they try to do a flip flop and get everybody to vote for them. Arguing they're the lesser of two evil after they've called them everything but baby killers leading up to that point. And it remains to be seen if they're learning their lesson over the years. But in 2016, that was the sum total of their efforts. And Jimmy was a part of the gang then.
And so if you're not with me, you're my enemy. And like, no, I'm to the left of you. I'm not to the...
No, you aren't. If you were to the left of them, you would go, people's lives are too important. We must do everything we can to help them. Instead of this, fuck you, I want protest votes all the time. He's not building an organization. He didn't start a fucking third party. He's not running as a candidate for that.
The right of you. I'm to the left of you.
Based on what? Who are they to the left of? To the left of the people who actually got the ACA, that gave 24 million people insurance, that expanded Medicare and Medicaid, that saved millions of lives, kept kids on their parents' insurance for years. God knows how many people's entire nest egg or their future was helped by that, much less their health. But the whole point was you should have just let it die. You should have had a protest vote where either go for Medicare for all or the whole thing collapses. Purity votes all the way. And if you can't get it because you don't have the people in there, then everybody's bad and don't even bother. Which, again, will only result in whatever Democrats would watch his show at this point. I don't know that there are a lot. And he, like Russell Brand, if you look at their insights, more than likely, it's a lot of, edgelord Republican incel types who are like, see, even these guys agree with me.
I'm shocked that Amish.
I mean, he's on Tucker all the fucking time. I mean, here, look at this. You want to see an example? Look at this. Jimmy Dore on Tucker. Jimmy Dore delivers fiery rant on Tucker Carlson. We share a common enemy. What? Immigrants? Brown-eyed people? I mean, both of you share eye color to some degree. Jimmy's got the serial killer drift happening. Not quite lazy, just a little bit disjointed. This is... I don't know why anybody would consider you right-wing. This is from this week. This clip was put up the same fucking day. I don't know where they get this idea.
Kid went in.
By the way, that explains why he freshly dyed his hair, because he was going on Tucker. It's date hair.
So hard because I thought they're anti-war.
You're not anti-war. Just because wanting Ukraine to get fucked in this situation is not anti-war. Rooting for Russia to win because they're just gonna. Rooting for the bully. And again, he roots for Russia to do things that he decries Israel for doing. And if it's about the principle, then what's the only difference between the two of these groups, between Russia and Israel, in this analogy of invaded or claimed territories and violence around that? Well, the Israelis are largely Jews. That's the difference. If you really were against what Israel does as a country, not because you're against Jews in general, but you just disagree with the policy, you would disagree with Russia on the same grounds. But he doesn't. And it's weird.
Amish people are supposed to be anti-war.
Amish people? I don't know. That's a reference from something else.
He started wearing buttons and it corrupted him. He's no lefty English.
Hey, we're doing stand?
No, you're not. I don't know who he's referring to. Hold on, I missed that.
Democrat are pissed off at me that I won't vote Democrat. And so if you're not with me, you're my enemy. And like, no, I'm to the left of you. I'm not to the right of you. I'm to the left of you.
Again, nobody buys that anymore. Again, if you hate Israel for doing what it's doing to the Palestinian territories, the Palestinians, and Palestine as an entity, and you're okay with Russia doing it to Ukraine, that has nothing to do with some sort of left-leaning principle about the sanctity of human life.
Shocked that Amish kid went in so hard because I thought they're anti-war.
Amish people are supposed to be anti-war.
Let's see. He started.
Shocked that Amish kid. I'm not quite sure. Oh, the guy in the other guy in the video. Okay, I guess.
Wearing buttons and it corrupted him.
Actually, they do wear buttons. It's zippers that they move to. But who cares? It's a reference and it's a cultural laugh at the Amish's expense. Okay. All right. But again, it's a comedy show because Kurt sits behind this wall or graphic until Jimmy's tired of him, feeds jokes from his Joshua Tree, I do mushrooms background. By the way, using his, what is it? What do you think that Yeti Silver, that's a $99 mic from a few years ago. Wearing his like airport headphones. I have a pair of those to do the show. Meanwhile, Jimmy, green screen background, $1 million house, French cuffs, and a $300 mic and a boom. There you go. So just so you know who's in charge. You know what I mean? How long do you think it'll take before Jimmy's show unionizes against him? That's my question. The interesting thing is that I guess Jimmy does labor under the illusion that he's somehow left wing, or like, you know, Aaron Mate or Danny Haifong are somehow left wing or anti-war, when basically all they're arguing for is let the Russians kill the Ukrainians. Let them do what they're going to do. If you help them defend themselves in any way, you're pro-war. You're just prolonging this. It's like if you defend or arm or help a rape victim escape, you're pro-rape in this argument. But Jimmy, who thinks that the rapist in this argument should be allowed to just get it over with, is anti-rape. No one buys that. I mean, his regular audience will, because that's the crowd he's gathering on the internet. But as we know, gathering a crowd around doom spraying and fear farming is not hard to do. And Jimmy is that dude. He's the one who picked up all the... It's because of TYT's hypocrisy about Hillary and others, where they, play up their candidate by tearing down the other Democrats so viciously that when they have to lurch back to saying, well, support them in the general because they're better than this person, it throws a monkey wrench in the brain pan of most of their audience. That audience that left TYT for those reasons, because they couldn't reconcile, now they're telling me to vote for this warmongering neocon baby killer, hops over to Jimmy's show. They just went there to park. But, it's a comedy show. It's a comedy show. It's a comedy show. And guys, I don't know why anyone would think that he was right wing. I don't know why they would get under the impression that maybe it's because the only show they see him on outside of his own show is Tucker Carlson. And Tucker won't have you on twice if you push back against Tucker's worldview. You serve a purpose for Tucker, or you don't come back on. All right, so welcome. You're watching HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. I do these clips all the way through in case you're new to the show and you're just finding your way here. And these are the clips they post. I do not edit these things. I don't take chunks of them out of context. I don't shorten or lengthen them, or take one little blurb and make something out of it. These are the things that these networks, these performers, these YouTubers, these influencers, these whomevers, this is what they post. I'll give you an example. In this particular case, this is Fox News. You guys are familiar with Fox News, right? They used to matter. Before they were vilified more by Mike Pillow and Donald Trump, they were vilified for years by you and I as, using fair and balanced as like a shield against reality by trademarking the phrase fair and balanced so it doesn't have to mean anything. This is January 6th panel turns focus to Justice Thomas' wife. That's the chyron. But the title of this is Senator Kennedy. This is another attempt to make Republicans look bad. Dude, you do not need any help from us, but take it away. Senator Kennedy, tell us how this is all just a smear campaign against the lily-white, pristine nature of Republicans, the Christian family values party that elevated Donald grab-him-by-the-pussy Trump to the highest office in the land and then followed him up the steps of the Capitol to hang his vice president, who was only installed next to him by the party to get the stank of misogynistic grotesqueness off of him, and let evangelicals have an excuse to vote for him.
I want to bring in Louisiana Republican Senator John Kennedy on this now. Senator, good morning to you. Got two topics for you, but I first want to...
Well, let me tell you something about this, son. I'm very upset today. 7 Late Show staffers arrested at the U.S. Capitol.
Right, because Triumph the Insult Comic Dog went into another hallway to talk to people.
Start with this Colbert thing.
Yeah, this Colbert thing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you heard this, but the Triumph the Comic Dog, Insult Comic Dog, tased a cop till he had a heart attack and took a shit in the rotunda. The shit in the rotunda part, I believe.
How often in your experience do you find people without badges or ID roaming the halls of Congress or the office halls of Congress? And
you mean since January 6th?
This case on the House side. How often does that happen?
Well, not usually.
Well, for me, never.
But I don't go out and talk to the plebes at all. Most of the time, I'm down in the underbelly of the Senate office trying to get a bear out of a hole.
And I don't have any inside information, Bill, but I've read about this and it.
Yes, I was close by. I was a couple of doorways away from the whole thing. I have direct access to everyone involved, but I don't. The only thing I know about it is what I've read in the Washington Post, which is a shit rag, except when it agrees with me.
It looks to me like it's just another example of a bunch of agenda journalists trying.
Agenda journalists. You can always spot an agenda journalist because they have a sock puppet dog on their hand with a cigar in his mouth making crass jokes. Agenda journalists. That's hard to say.
Trying to make Democrats look good and Republicans look bad.
Yes, anyone refers to segment producers and comedy writers from the Colbert Show as agenda journalists.
And
by the way, many of you think my teeth are whistling right now, and it's not. I'm breaking wind. It's just very well timed.
That's why
I don't know why I'm on this. Why'd you have to ask me about that? I want to talk about something else, like why I think 4-year-olds need AR-15s.
I've said in another.
Ooh, it's starting to get ripe in here.
Context. That's why the American people they're not fooled. They trust the media now like they trust gas station sushi. And the media.
I don't live in that highfalutin area, Senator Kennedy. Most of us who aren't in the Senate and aren't millionaires don't live near gas stations that sell sushi.
Everybody knows that, but not everybody, but many members of the media have no self-awareness. They think they're fooling the American people.
Yeah, they think the American people think that's actually a dog.
Well, my guess is they were shooting skits, but
yeah, I mean, if I was just spitballing, if I had one idea over another, I would think that was kind of the whole rubber dog with the cigar thing might have made it not, strictly speaking, a journalistic endeavor. But I'm glad you read up on it before the segment so we know what the fuck you're talking about.
But I don't have any information to confirm that. I was just trying to read.
Yeah, I don't know. Why would I think that? It's only the Colbert Show, and Triumph the Insult Comic Dog was in every story about the fucking thing. Hold on. Colbert, Triumph, Capital. It was my thought that they were possibly shooting sketches. What would ever give you that idea? Fucking hell. You didn't even tee him up with it? Bad segment producing.
Between the lines. And
I was reading between the lines. Wait a minute. You were reading between the lines? You're in a news network, fucko. You don't have access to videos or photo of said experience? I read between the lines? God damn, Bill's fallen so far. I did a salute to the troops years ago with Bill when he was, when Fox still was bordering on sane. There were all the morning crews were at this event. And he, was like ass in the morning, like 5 o'clock in the morning, or 4:30, something like that. And we had to do this whole thing for all of the morning shows back east and in LA. And like he was just kind of a nudge Ken doll dude, like a placeholder, like a cardboard cutout. And now he's like, I guess to stay on Fox, this is required.
They were knocking on Republicans' doors and trying to catch them off guard. I mean, it's just agenda journalism.
It's just agenda journalism, trying to catch them off guard with gotcha journalism, like Triumph. Well, I mean, in all fairness to Senator Kennedy, he has no sense of humor.
That's all it is.
Yeah, don't need.
He uses kind of like old country phrases to give himself some like rural cred.
I'm trying to pick sides.
That's the story there.
Trying to get people to pick sides. Yeah, you're either pro rubber dog or not.
The other issue is the protesters outside the homes of these Supreme Court justices.
Yeah, I mean, there were no rubber dogs at that. Bloody protesters at Barrett's home with dolls. Bloody in quotes, obviously, because they covered themselves in blood and they're basically arguing that what Kavanaugh and Barrett are going to result in the deaths of women, not physically threatening the people there. But the idea is like, all right.
Yeah. Now it's written.
Yeah, that I even read less about.
In the law, intimidation is a federal violation, but apparently that's not the case. I guess if you're on a sidewalk in a neighborhood in Maryland, and over the weekend they were outside Coney Barrett's home as well. Here is Lieutenant Governor Winsome in the state.
Yeah, these people are very intimidating. Basically you're vacillating between like high betties who couldn't run 8 steps without throwing a knee out and pencil vegans with LGBT flags. Bless their hearts. People just making their voices heard. But this is the crowd that's going to cause a panic. They're outside, George. Look at them. All different colors.
State of Virginia reacting to.
One of them's masked. We won't even know who she is. Across her eyes? No, she's wearing a COVID mask outdoors. I didn't know there was anybody that far left anymore.
I have no words when I see these grotesque images that these young girls are carrying. I think to myself,
these grotesque images? You're kidding me, right? Have you seen the anti-choice billboards they hold up? The aborted fetuses and that kind of stuff to like see this is what it looks like and stuff. But this is gross. They tape their hands and are holding a rubber doll, and they're bleeding between their crotch. The idea is that it's forced birth. They're making a forced birth thing with props. This is a demonstration.
it must be that their parents feel the same and think the same as they do.
Their parents feel the same and think the same as they do, because all kids do exactly what their parents tell them to do.
And don't they realize the irony of this? The reason why you are here is because at some point your mother was pro-choice.
Yes, and they chose to have a child, and they may have not died from a malformed birth or a fetus, like basically skin grafted to their uterine wall that may have killed them. They may have had to choose to have an abortion early so that they could actually raise a child later, or even become pregnant again later, or perhaps not carry the child of their rapist or family member who sexually assaulted them.
The story here, they had apparently props with dolls and...
Oh my God, props, dolls. I mean, what's the difference between them and Ted Kaczynski at this point? I don't know.
Blood, etc. And
blood, etc. wasn't real blood. I'm just saying. It's very...
I mean, her point is that your mom was pro-choice.
Right. They chose to have them. And you can trust women to make the right choice with their own bodies. Doesn't really help. I'm not a woman, so I don't really get it.
I thought
forced birth is enslavement. There you go.
This would end.
Yeah, why would you? Well, of course it would end. I thought this would end the minute. The minute the SCOTUS announced or this draft leaks that they're going to undermine Roe v. Wade and yeah, thank you, an ectopic pregnancy. Thank you, Bicycle Mike.
And now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that these protests aren't going to grow through the fall once women's rights are stripped away.
That it ever does.
Yeah, never. Again, what kind of a dickhead thinks that the SCOTUS punting this back to the states so red states and blue states can have women can have different rights depending on where they live. So they have to choose where they move based on whether they want to be a whole person. You really, this asshole really thought that that would end the argument?
Well, this is more than just about abortion. It's about respect for American institutions.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's not about abortion. It's about respect for, it's the institutions. The institution of forced birth.
I think most people can see that all of this is being driven
by people who give a shit. They're like many of them hardliners who feel this. I'm sorry. It's probably paid for by George Soros.
By the anti-intellectual, crypto-socialist woke left.
The anti-intellectual, crypto-socialist woke left. Yeah, these are all, we just want to make sure that taxpayers' bitcoins aren't used to pay for forced births.
The Biden administration has embraced, and frankly, that is in charge of in Washington, D.C. When the draft opinion was leaked, the wokers' response was immediate.
The wokers' response and the women's response was immediate.
Said, we don't agree with it, so let's burn the place down.
Yes, I can see the torches. It's like a scene out of Young Frankenstein. The bicycle is the dead giveaway. I mean, you're never going to be able to catch that person. It's got a bell. It's got a light. They can go forever. Look at that. It's even got a mud flap on there. You're not even going to be able to trace the dirt from Amy Coney Barrett's park near her house to... All right.
Let's intimidate the justices.
Yes, let's intimidate them with our displeasure.
Let's intimidate their spouses. Let's intimidate their kids.
I'm not quite sure, again, why those folks... This is just a bad choice of video, Fox. I think you're better off not showing. I think, you know what you might want to try next time? Still shots of the girls with the bleeding crotches and the babies and other stuff, and then just like do a Ken Burns on it with some heavy music, because quite frankly, this just looks like shit. This looks like no one would be afraid of this, and this is just standard protesting.
Let's publish their telephone numbers and addresses on the internet.
Okay, I'm glad that Kennedy has come out as anti-doxing.
And while we're at it, let's see
if the rabbit's got any honey left in his refrigerator.
Pack the court and abolish the filibuster.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of a big scheme.
And what you allow is what will continue. And the Biden...
What you allow is what will continue. That's right. No protesting. We should pass a law against protesting. And it's important for all of us to recognize that the First Amendment is basically, there is no separation. If you look at the Texas GOP's platform, the separation of church and state, that's got to go. And abortion's clear. You know, women are the broodmare of the evangelical church. You either got to keep your quiver full of babies and just, shoot them out like a spud gun.
Administration has embraced that. I don't think the Biden administration and most of my Democratic colleagues have pushed back at all. And all of this
What are they supposed to push back on? Honest to God, what are they supposed to push back on? These fuckers, whatever. They aren't open carrying in front of these houses, going, I'll show you pro-life or some shit like that. Meanwhile, this dude totally supports, if you have displeasure with your government, walking around on the steps of your state capitol armed to the fucking teeth with 30-round magazines duct taped together so you can reload quickly like some sort of, Call of Duty loadout.
Shows a remarkable either misunderstanding or disregard for the role of the Supreme Court in American society and in our Constitution.
You mean they shouldn't be activist judges that go against the will of the people when it's drastically in favor of Roe v. Wade staying in place, and that they said it was stare decisis, or that they wouldn't overturn it when they actually were confirmed, and now they're lying about that fact? You mean that kind? No, that's not what you're saying.
The Supreme Court is not a political branch.
Yes, Amy Coney Barrett is immensely qualified to be on there. She wasn't put there as a single note voter.
Not supposed to be. They're not many judges. They're not politicians in robes. They're not elected. Their job is to tell us what the Constitution means and tell us what the law is, not.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're fine with that when it means the ACA should stay.
What it ought to be. And
by the way, put a pin in that, because that little clip will contradict umpteen speeches that this asshole makes over the next year and a half.
Look, something's seriously wrong in this country, and
that people can show their displeasure with the removal of their rights or the rights of their fellow citizens. I know it's almost as if free speech still exists. I think that's probably his biggest complaint, is that, their complaint is cancel culture is destroying free speech, and the big tech companies are destroying free speech. And then you have people protesting, showing that you still have free speech, and the government isn't rolling in to stop you to expressing yourself in this regard. And it kind of eats into that narrative.
This is just another example. It's not going to get better until President Biden does something about it.
It's not going to get better until President Biden does something about it. President Biden doesn't write protest permits in Virginia, for fuck's sake. And he's certainly not going to go, all right, none of this. You can't protest in a neighborhood associated with anybody that does anything that might affect your life permanently. What?
We'll see.
Yes, why don't you talk to the mayor of Falls Church?
Not a word on that. And
yeah, not a word on that. I mean, Biden's completely silent on these 14 people walking down the street carrying LGBT flags. I mean, it's and they might as well have just taken a Confederate flag into the rotunda and taken a shit.
And we could get that Roe decision any day now. We expect it any day now, whether it's this week or next week. Senator, nice to have you on today.
Yes. Next time, try to know less about what we're talking about. I mean, it might be the segment producer's fault, but could you be less well-read, less up-to-date? And this reminds me of the Don Jr. videos where he goes, "We can't let that happen. Guys, we can't let that happen." So when MTG, Cruz, and other jokers are not available, send John Kennedy? Yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, no, they on this part of the day, this is a fairly regular appearance. He shows up and drops these little colloquial bombs, that dog won't hunt, shit like that. And they just love how rural he sounds. And he's basically they're lining him up to be the next Mitch McConnell, is the theory, that he's their long game for an elder statesman of what's left of the Republican Party, and Kennedy will fall in and be the majority leader or something like that at some point in the next couple of years if McConnell drops out.
John Kennedy in Louisiana today.
Thank you for having me, and it's a wonderful thing to be here, and I couldn't be happier to talk about stuff that I have not really, I'm not even, was there a rubber dog?
Thank you. You're watching HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. I'm here every day in the afternoons, 3 to 5 Pacific time, and I go over these clips, and some of them are specifically to show you sort of the root of where an argument began, and some are about where it goes to die. We kind of bookend the right-wing conversation about different topics. Our dear friend Dinesh D'Souza is chiming in on January 6th. The idea being is that Trump is liable, either criminally or civilly, for what happened on January 6th because of his selling of the big lie and the fact that he doesn't actually believe it, that he's selling this bullshit. And now, Trump obviously has to be all in on this lie because it's the only thing he's got as a defense in Georgia. Because if it comes out and it's shown that he was aware that he lost, that he admitted that he lost, he knew it was true, and that the evidence coming in was bullshit, and that he was just manipulating people to try and maintain power, that he's criminally liable in Georgia. And if he can prove or at least skate on the idea that people think he's actually stupid enough to buy the bullshit that Giuliani and Mike Pillow and Lynn Wood and Sidney Powell were selling him, then maybe he can squeak by as like, he actually believed this bullshit, and therefore he wasn't breaking the law when he was asking for those 11,781 votes in Georgia. That's the current scam. Now, what the Jan 6 committee is showing, and tomorrow, of course, we'll all watch, and I will be live tweeting that and then talking about it in the afternoon. What he needs to do is, and the problem is that what the Jan 6 committee is doing is showing that he doesn't actually believe it, that this is sales. And so every speech he is giving, he's trying to reinforce that it was rigged and rigged and rigged, and he has to say this over and over again because his ego won't allow himself to admit in public again for the, I guess, 6th time, right? He's admitted 5 times already that he knows Biden won. That for the 6th time, it's just too much. It's a bridge too far. And if he's going to, he's got to hang on to this fight, hang on to that angle that he does believe the lie to protect himself from January 6th committee's, DOJ referral and what's happening in Georgia. And so he's got to convince everyone that he's a complete dipshit, which in many ways we all don't have a problem with. Here's Dinesh telling us what the January 6th committee doesn't want us to know about January 6th. It actually happened on January 7th. If you're Australian, I'll believe. So this is, here I spell out what the January 6th committee doesn't want you to know about January 6th. Really, I wouldn't have gotten that from the title. All right, here we go.
January 6th hearings are, the January 6th hearings are pushing on.
They're pushing on, and the populace is, the needle is moving in polling towards convicting Trump. 6-point bump, and 1 in 5 Republicans now believe that Trump should be prosecuted for his part in Jan 6.
And as we know, these hearings aren't really a presentation.
Yes, they are. They are specifically a presentation
of different points of view.
Oh, okay. No, you're right. It's a presentation of reality.
They're not a trial in any official sense of the term.
Yeah, they did that part, and they're still in part of the investigation, but the parts that they've settled on, the information that they have, they are showing.
There's no cross-examination. Evidence is presented selectively.
Well, that's when the DOJ comes in. This is just an investigative process. You ever notice that during an investigation, the would-be murderer's lawyer doesn't get to stand around the crime scene, tell people what drawers not to look in when the police are called to a crime scene.
And so they're pushing a particular narrative. And let's say, you know,
are they? Oh yes, that reality is more important than a fiction sold by a second-generation rich kid who's been a loser all his life.
Know nothing about January 6th.
No, they know nothing about it. They don't even know what month it happened in.
You're just watching this for the first time. You would get the idea that you've got this sort of massive, violent mob of...
Yeah, you would. Yeah. Mostly from the video.
Of Trump supporters who break their way into the Capitol.
Well, no, some of them broke their way in. The rest of them just ran in afterwards.
Storm the Capitol.
Right. Yeah, about 3,000 to 5,000 of them.
Would assume that they brought all kinds of weapons and arms into the Capitol.
They did.
Why? Because after all, they're launching an insurrection. They're trying to overthrow the government. How do you overthrow the government of the most powerful country in the world if you show up without even guns or knives or bombs? So the assumption...
Well, first of all, you sharpen sticks. And you do have guns. We've had our fifth conviction of someone bringing a gun in, including a dude who fucking lost his gun while they were banging down the door, while they were battering ramming the door. They also seized weapons from cops along the way. They brought bear spray. They brought a gallows. They were going to mob and overwhelm by volume of humans the people that were there, drag Mike Pence out and hang him. I guarantee that 1,000 people, once they had overwhelmed the 8 or so, Secret Service guys around Mike Pence, if they'd have managed to get their hands on him, they wouldn't have needed guns or knives or sticks to drag him out and hang him. He'd have been dead by the time they got him to the gallows because they would have beaten him to death. You get the feeling Dinesh is one of those assholes who watches The Walking Dead, sees an army of zombies and goes, I don't see a single gun.
The assumption would be that all these guys came in, they were heavily armed. This was a kind of replay, if you will, of the Civil War. In fact, we've heard a lot of analogies.
No, you haven't heard an analogy. You said comparisons, the worst thing that happened in the Capitol since the Civil War. That the fact that a Confederate flag didn't even fly in the rotunda or in the Capitol itself during the Civil War.
January 6th and the Civil War. And then you would think that this Trump mob unleashed an orgy of violence that resulted in all these people dropping dead. Police officers who were killed, like Brian Sicknick. This, of course, was part of the narrative being pushed by the New York Times. This man was bludgeoned to death.
Again, hit in the head. Never mind the fact that... hold on one second. I'm going to get his name right. Michael Fanone was this guy who, by the way, Greg Kelly loves to shit on. This guy was tased repeatedly till he had a heart attack. They were trying to get his gun. He was saying, I have kids. And one of the other people there was like, don't do it. In the same way that Epps, Ray Epps, the guy they think is a FBI agent, whispered to the man who led the charge into the Capitol at one of the barriers, don't do it. The cops are just doing their jobs. And he was like, fuck that. And they just went ahead and did it. He basically, Dinesh wants you to think that they just rolled in there and gave everyone, they came with tickle feathers and massage oil.
You would also believe that all these other Capitol police officers died. In fact, there were some reports of suicides in the immediate aftermath of January 6th. So it was like, these people are so traumatized, they actually took their own life. But in effect, their deaths were caused by the violence of January 6th. And so this is the picture that you're not
going to mention the girl who was stomped to death by maggots in the tunnel that people tried to give CPR to, and they dragged her to the very police that these assholes were trying to beat up to save her life, or the guy getting crushed in the door.
Democrats are trying to paint in a kind of comic twist, they're not
in a comic twist.
Now even trying to imply that this mob was trying to kill Mike Pence.
I beg your pardon, they what?
Trying to imply that this mob was trying to kill Mike Pence. And I apologize a little bit for chuckling because I'm just thinking to myself, who would want to kill Mike Pence?
That's a great question. Let me see.
During the hearing, an extended...
Hold on one second. Let's see where we get in here.
Not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. Bring out Pence! Bring out Pence!
Crowd chants, hang Mike Pence.
Yeah, I don't know where... That's hilarious, Dinesh. I don't know where anybody would get that fucking idea. They built a goddamn gallows. Again, who brought the wood? When are we going to get some... I need an answer on this. Jan 6 committee, really the only thing I really care about, because mainly I know all the shit that they're bringing up largely. Some of the Eastman emails are interesting and will definitely lead to that dude being disbarred, if not jailed. And I'm happy to hear about that. But who the fuck built the gallows? Yeah, they brought the bolts. They bought fucking tools. Where the fuck did it come from? They literally built a fucking gallows. What was that again, Dinesh? Look at this dipshit. Fucking hell.
Was trying to kill Mike Pence. And I apologize a little bit for chuckling because I'm just thinking to myself, who would want to kill Mike Pence? Here, and you see a picture, by the way, and the picture itself undercuts the idea because you've got Mike Pence's wife literally drawing a curtain. Now, quite frankly, if you're under direct threat of your life, you're not going to be just, let's draw the curtains. And Mike...
By the way, they're showing the room that they were hiding in. And his wife drew the curtains because they were not far from where these fuckers were, and they were afraid that they would message where they were. How fucking... Oh, my God. I mean, we've all seen 2,000 Mules, so we know how dumb this idiot is. God damn, this is awful. Like, this is just weak. This is what the January 6th committee doesn't want you to know about Jan 6? Dude, what the... What? We're watching There's a huge crowd of maggots. You can see their fucking MAGA hats. They're all yelling, hang Mike Pence. It's a giant refrain. It's not like they're the two BLM and Antifa guys who snuck in or a couple of FBI provocateurs. The whole fucking crowd is yelling, hang Mike Pence.
Mike Pence is completely unruffled. He's not even looking at the curtain. He's chatting with some other guy who's sitting in the office. So he appears...
Yeah, he's chatting. They're just chit-chatting while they're screaming, hang Mike Pence.
Unperturbed. So what the January 6th committee has to do is they have to rely on massive manipulation of video.
Jesus Christ. Dude, you are centering on a still shot of Karen Pence shutting the fucking curtain because she's worried they'll be able to see him. Him sitting there trying to make a decision about his next steps. And he refused to leave the building because on two fronts, he thought Trump would order his driver not to bring him back. I mean, at a certain point, we just have to understand that Dinesh just doesn't see reality. He's incapable of it. Like, he's just constantly wearing shit-covered glasses.
Manipulation of photographs, one-sided hammering, with the media, of course, in that sense, then.
Yeah, one-sided hammering of the, like, they're like, they really keep hammering this note of.
Crowd.
Yeah, they keep doing the whole hang Mike Pence, that one-sided hammering.
Amplifying what's being said.
Well, I mean, you know what amplifies what's being said is a giant crowd screaming it.
Complete suppression of skeptical points of view. Like,
Skeptical. I mean, maybe they're saying it like in the British colloquialism. Oh, hang the vicar. I don't even need to hear about it.
Hey, let's take a good look at Mike Pence. Does he look scared to you?
He didn't know they were yelling that. He heard an attack, but he didn't find out till later that that's what they were yelling, dipshit. He couldn't see the fucking gallows from where he was. He was taken to a secure location by the Secret fucking Service.
You know, so all of
anyways, this whole
this is going on, and Julie.
There's a lot of saliva in this. I'm just saying, Dinesh. Is this what happens when you're just bullshitting behind the 8 ball? You get a big glob of something in there, and
Kelly has an excellent article. It's called January 6th for Non-Dummies.
Oh, that's adorable.
When she just reminds us of a couple of key.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Bullshit.
Key facts. Number 1, no one, and I repeat, no one, carried firearms into the building.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Well, I'll just give you the whole list. This is the Trace is doing a running tally of everybody who was involved in the mass of people that day and the day before. They start with the people who were busted just having guns nearby. Enrique Tarrio was arrested at a DC hotel on the 4th for burning a Black Lives Matter flag he stole from a black church last month. The officer serving the warrant found him in possession of 2 AR-15 M4 compatible 30-round magazines branded with the Proud Boys insignia. That he was bringing ammo for somebody else who had guns. The guns had already been placed in vehicles near the Capitol so that if Trump called for the Insurrection Act and then martial law, they would act as his foot soldiers. That's the if you've been watching Jan 6, that's the direction that at least the Proud Boys and whomever their contact in the White House thought it would go. Let's see. Harlan Bowen, January 5th, was arrested with a Glock 23 handgun and a large capacity magazine holding 13 rounds. 3 rounds over the legal limit in D.C. That's adorable. Gronick, North Carolina, arrested half a mile from the Capitol on Jan 5th. They were basically doing a sweep the days before. Here you go. Was arrested a few blocks from the White House on January 6th. Then charged with carrying a pistol without a license, possession of a large capacity magazine, possession of unregistered ammunition. Prosecutors later dropped the charges. Adorable, because it's D.C. 33 of Maryland was arrested outside U.S. Capitol Visitor Center an hour and a half after curfew on the evening of January 6th. Noticed a bulge in his pants, discovered a 9mm Taurus handgun, 12 rounds, 2 more than the legal limit, and another magazine holding 12 rounds. He was in and out of there. Lonnie Leroy Kaufman, 70 of Alabama, was arrested on the evening of January 6th by a Capitol Police officer who came upon his truck and found an assault-style rifle, a shotgun, 3 handguns, a large capacity magazine, and components for 11 Molotov cocktails. That guy was fun. Police also found a handwritten note with the name of a Muslim House representative on it. Grant McGarry of Georgia was arrested on January 6th by a Capitol Police officer who came upon his truck a block away from the Capitol and found a Ruger 380, 3 loaded 6-round magazines, 12 loose rounds. Moore carried a license from his home state, but the handgun was not registered in D.C. He's charged with carrying a pistol without a license. Julian Snell, arrested a few blocks from the White House on January 6th by a Metropolitan Police Department officer charged with carrying a pistol without a license. Arrested for a few blocks from the White House. Colorado, let's see, none of them were arrested in the actual Capitol because they were just found to have carried it later. Charged with disorderly conduct on restricted grounds, unlawful. Based on social media posts and messages, FBI agents alleged that Fisher was at the Capitol on January 6th and in possession of multiple firearms while in D.C. At his arraignment, prosecutors said he was found with a shotgun, a semi-automatic rifle, a handgun, and more than 1,000 rounds of ammunition upon his arrest, and said more charges could be coming soon. The guns were cited by the judge in his decision to deny Fisher bail. He's one of the people who's in the D.C. jail. of California arrested July 20th, 2021, charged with entering and remaining in a restricted building and on grounds. That's the Capitol. Prosecutors say Ibrahim, a special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration, entered the Capitol grounds after rioters breached the barricades and showed off his badge and gun to rioters, posing for photos. He was off duty at the time. 56 of Indiana was arrested in Shelbyville on November, charged with unlawfully carrying a firearm on Capitol grounds, civil disorder, and assaulting, resisting, and impeding officers with a dangerous weapon. According to a criminal complaint, a Taurus revolver loaded with 3 shotgun shells and 2 hollow point bullets fell from Mazza's waistband during a physical altercation with police officers at the Capitol on January 6th. He fled with the crowd. That's where they went inside. That's when they were knocking the doors back. And that's just so far. This is going to be the whole thing. And again, a bunch of people just were never patted down, never arrested, they never touched their backpack. They just,
supposed to be an armed insurrection. Pelosi is actually...
Also, arms don't just mean guns. You can be armed with bayonets. You can be armed with knives. You can be armed with sharpened flagpoles and bear spray.
Called it an armed insurrection.
And that was the case. They literally were stacking guns nearby.
How do you do an armed insurrection without arms? How do you storm a building without arms?
By overwhelming police officers and having those police officers so physically overwhelmed that if they even fired a shot, the crowd itself would overwhelm and kill them, and it would escalate the violence.
Your what? With your fists?
Yes, with your fists.
With your nose? So 18 months later, no one has been charged with carrying a firearm into the building on January 6th.
Carrying a firearm because the dude dropped his gun coming in the mass of people.
Now, there are 4 guys who were charged with possessing or carrying a firearm, but that's outside the Capitol.
Yeah, because nobody was being arrested in the Capitol. Nobody was cuffed up. They just cleared the building.
That's like on the grounds.
Right. Because they pushed everybody out of the building so they could proceed with counting the votes.
Off the cap.
And pepper spray or mace and knives and blunt weapons count as arms.
Capitol, including one man who was arrested the evening after the protest.
With stacked guns in their hotel room like fucking Vegas, Mandalay Bay.
Ended. Now, no police officers died on January 6th.
Yeah, no. They none of them died, so the injuries will just look past.
As a result of the protest. The Sicknick thing has been completely exposed as a fraud. The New York Times itself retracted it.
The District of Columbia Chief Medical Examiner found that Sicknick had died from a stroke, classifying his death as natural, and additionally commented that all that transpired played a role in his condition. Meaning that the injuries he sustained and the physical trauma and perhaps the adrenaline trauma to his body, the shock, the trauma of the day contributed to the stroke happening. All that transpired played a role in his condition. That's what they're referencing January 6th. Let's see. Oops, hold on. There's an ad coming up. Died from strokes. The chief medical examiner said in a report summary citing acute brainstem and cerebral infarcts due to acute basilar artery thrombosis. In an interview with the Washington Post, the chief medical examiner, Francisco Diaz, said Sicknick suffered 2 strokes at the base of his brainstem caused by a clot in an artery. Approximately 2:20 p.m. on January 6th, Sicknick was sprayed with a chemical substance. Oops, hold on. Let's see. Despite being sprayed with a chemical substance, Sicknick's manner of death was determined to be natural, the medical examiner's office said. In the interview with the Post, Diaz said the autopsy found no evidence of internal or external injuries or of an allergic reaction to the chemical substance, but did say all that transpired played a role in his condition. Basically, it's like if you have an aneurysm and it's floating around, but the cause of the aneurysm was that, it burst due to trauma.
The medical examiner said, no, this guy died of natural causes.
Yes. stemming from the extreme nature of the day he had at the Capitol.
And as for the policeman who committed suicide, who knows why they did that? I mean, policemen obviously generally operate under a lot of stress. Apparently, there were two Capitol police officers who committed suicide in the days following, and two DC officers months later.
Yeah, notice how they're not riching these guys.
But there's no proof that any of these suicides was connected in any way with the events of that day. That's just pure speculation. Now,
yes, it's pure speculation that they're unrelated to what happened in those days.
The one issue that the January 6th committee does not want to go even near
is why. Again, look, we know the dude thought his wife was cheating and killed the dude from work he thought she was cheating with. Turns out she wasn't cheating, but so we think he should get off for murder because he thought his wife was cheating. That's going to be the argument. He's going to pivot to 2,000 Mules and the Big Lie. What do you think?
Is the role of the FBI in orchestrating?
Oh, okay. No, we're going straight to it was all set up that the people yelling "Hang Mike Pence" were being conducted like an orchestra.
January 6th. Ted Cruz directly put this question to the FBI. And the FBI representative was extremely cagey.
Extremely cagey. Not as cagey as the people who were trying to put a bullet in Nancy Pelosi's brain later on at their hearing.
This is Jill Sanborn, the FBI counterterrorism chief. She was asked, did the FBI play a role? I can't say. Did the FBI egg anyone on? Can't say. Did the FBI orchestrate it? Can't say.
Hold on, wait.
Was extremely to the FBI, and the FBI representative was extremely cagey. This is Jill Sanborn, the FBI counterterrorism chief. She was asked, did the FBI play a role?
All right, let's see. Let's see. FBI Jan 6. Let's see. The video.
I will, thank you.
This is how many agents were confidential informants during the January 6th riot. This is, I think, the section she's talking about.
Thank you, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Cruz.
This is January 11th. This is just 5 days after this shit happened.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Olson.
5 days after this, Ted Cruz is running interference for his part in holding up the proceedings to give the Proud Boys and the rioters time to reach the Capitol.
How many people have been charged with crimes of violence in connection with the events on January 6th?
This is, by the way, on the 11th. Crimes of violence.
Senator, I'm not sure exactly how many have been charged with crimes of violence. I know that there are many.
Okay. How many have been charged with nonviolent crimes?
How many have been charged with nonviolent crimes? You know, they were just milling about. And here's what I want to know, Ted. Is it a violent crime to steal a laptop from the speaker's office, and you got access to it by other people beating cops and knocking down doors and busting in windows?
I don't have the numbers of people charged, whether at the state or federal level. I know that.
Okay. How many people are currently incarcerated concerning the events of January 6th?
I don't know the number of people incarcerated. Again, I know that
how many? Okay, let me ask you that. Look, we have limited time, so I don't want you to filibuster. You either know the answer.
He's filibustering. He's like, it's 5 days ago. We're still looking for a bunch of these fuckers. We're sifting through hundreds of thousands of hours of video of these assholes filming themselves. And again, this is the 11th.
You don't. How many people have been placed in solitary confinement concerning the events of January 6th?
None. No one is placed in solitary confinement because they were part of January 6th. It's the spitting on guards and calling them baby killers and refusing to get vaccinated or refusing to wear a mask and shit like that at that point that made you end up in solitary.
I don't have any information about that, Senator.
You know,
by the way, that's a local jail question.
Mr. Olson, I will say it was sad. Senator Lee just asked you about this.
Do you know the numbers? Is it a number that can be known? Is it a referential number that will rise or fall according to your opinion about this? Or are you, I mean, this was just him stacking.
In June of 2021, Senator Lee and I and two...
In June of 2021, obviously important to what happened on January 6th.
Other senators sent a letter to the Department of Justice asking these questions, asking about the differential prosecutions. Let me ask you.
Okay, this is January 11th of this year. So he sent one last year, June of 2021, asking these questions.
2020, Black Lives Matter and Antifa.
All right, again, the comparison between these are city jurisdictions, unless the people from BLM or Antifa are seen to have crossed federal lines. It is none of the fucking federal government's business. This is state crime. These are questions for the AGs or the DAs of these states and cities. And any belief that they aren't is federal overreach, according to Republicans.
Riots all across the country. There were over 700 police officers injured by Black Lives Matter and Antifa riots. How many people have been charged with crimes of violence concerning those riots all across the country?
Again, he wouldn't know because those are charged by state police unless they cross the line and they're communicating, which there was no sign that they were, especially when it came to, like, BLM wasn't the hinge point of the violence. BLM was arranging the protests, but the riots popping off from those things were locally based. They were people from the community, with rare exception. And even then, not a coordinated effort, just hunting down individuals who were driving around the place. You could argue that Gage Grosskreutz, who Rittenhouse shot in the bicep, that dude was traveling around. But he wasn't aligned with a particular group in a way that the FBI would know about.
I don't have information on how many. I would say, hundreds of people have been charged, as Ms. Sanborn.
You would say, but you don't know.
You would say, but you don't know. That's because they're charged by the state, fucko. It's not his jurisdiction.
When we asked you why the Biden Department of Justice has such wildly disparate standards going after January 6th.
The Capitol is a federal building. Target in Minneapolis is not. The Capitol rioters, directed by the president that day, at that time, to go to the fucking Capitol is a distinct action against a federal fucking building. Rioters burning down stores or cars is wholly different. They're not in the same way that it's not there's no federal investigation when the Celtics win and people burn cars and turn them over because they're happy about a basketball game.
Targeting some people who committed crimes of violence, and anyone who commits crimes of violence should be prosecuted, but also targeting a lot of non-violent individuals.
Yeah, who were part of a mob that trespassed into the Capitol using violence. You don't have to beat anybody up or stomp anyone to death or try to kill them if the people in front of you have already taken care of that. If you're just there to hang the dude you never got access to.
We asked you, why is it that you won't target the rioters and terrorists?
They do. Jesus Christ, this is lazy on his part. Hold on. Let's see, FBI. Let's see. Let's just put let's just go. Let's do one of their favorites. Let's do Portland. This is August 27th, 2020, 2021. Let's go December. Wall Street Journal, police and raise question. Portland protest case show feds arrest Capitol riots. Let's see. I find a Portland rioters. Let's see. Portland. Let's see. This obviously isn't the latest. Let's see. District of Oregon, U.S. Attorney's District of Oregon, rioters. Whoops. I can do that. Hold on. Dink, dink. Let's hear. Here's just, this is Portland. 74 people facing federal charges for crimes committed during Portland demonstrations. Charges include assaulting federal officers, arson, failing to obey lawful orders, and damaging federal property. These would be the ones that would be covered by the feds. The rest of it is covered by local prosecutors, state of Oregon or Portland city officials. Let's see. Portland arrests rioters. Let's just do that. Portland police knowledge, George Floyd protests in, okay, Portland protests. Okay, here you go. Portland this guy. Here we go. Portland protests arrests by the numbers through February 2021. Let's see. Portland, as protest-related vandalism continues in Portland, the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office said they're continuing to prosecute criminal cases that involve property destruction and physical violence over the past year. Between May 28, 2020 and February 26, 2021, the DA's office, which this would not be part of, and this is why I can't answer this question, because the federal ones are the only ones that cross borders. Most of these things were internal. DA's office said they received 294 civil unrest demonstration-related cases that fall into 4 categories. Arson burning, right? As opposed to just burning. Person crimes, as opposed to robot crimes, I suppose. Property crimes, and weapons crimes. Obviously, person crimes are against a human being. These 4 categories account for only 20% of all the arrests. So there's another 62% of arrests that came because of other stuff besides arson, burning, person crimes, property crimes, and weapons crimes. Data shows the breakdown between charges filed and sent back to the police for a follow-up. Arson, burning, 54% of them were charged, 7% were sent back. Person crimes, 37% were charged, 16% was sent back, meaning we need more evidence. Property crimes, 51% charged, 17% sent back. Weapons crimes, 62% charged, 6% sent back. Person crime cases, 174 cases that resulted from demonstration or civil unrest have been referred between May 28, 2020 and February 26, 2021. 65 of the 174, 37%, have been charged. 29 of the 174, 16%, have been referred back to law enforcement for a follow-up. Property crimes, 106 cases resulted from demonstration have been charged. 54% of the 106 have been charged. 18 of the 106, 17% have been sent back for follow-up. Arson, 7 of the 13 have been charged. There were 13 cases. 1 of the 13 was sent back for a follow-up. 32 cases from weapons crimes. 20 of the 32 have been charged. 2 of the 32 have been sent back for follow-up. This week, PPB detained about 100 people briefly and arrested 14 during vandalism in Northwest Portland. Of those 14, 10 were cited, 3 cases went to the DA, and 2 people were charged. The DA's office said they would review each case but declined to be more specific. The issue of mass detention by police to identify individuals and to investigate a potential crime may result in future litigation. As some of the cases from Friday night involved mass detention, it is prudent that we not comment any further. Basically, they run out of space because these groups are so big. And the rest of the time, it makes no sense for Portland to have like giant holding centers to process these folks. They would need like enough ankle bracelets for half the city. The community is really clear on the fact that these are no longer protests. They are just riots. There is no real gold in them, and it's just criminal destruction. Rose City Downtown Collective co-founder Vanessa Sturgeon said, the Downtown Collective, which is clearly a left-leaning group. At this point, people are heartened that the police have been able to find an effective tool to deal with criminal behavior, and now it'll just be up to the district attorney's office to hold people accountable through prosecution. We're told that many businesses within the district have taken to Schmidt, stressing the need to hold people accountable for destruction, especially as we see the resurgence of vandals congregating overnight once again. This is as of February, right? March 17th, 2021. This is this date in here. That's the main gathering point of that. So that's the numbers in Portland by itself. So, a couple hundred people charged with a serious crime. Other people cited and have to go to court about that stuff and released. And then they get cited a second or third time. Then they're getting referred again.
Who firebomb cities across this country.
They firebombed cities across this country. No, actually, a small percentage of them, quote unquote, firebombed cities. And of those where they were able to bring cases, 36 out of the 42 or so that were charged ended up getting cited, going to jail.
We got from the Department of Justice
is that these are state and local crimes.
Was shameful. On October 22nd, you came back and said, quote, the department has dedicated investigative and prosecutorial resources commensurate with the significance of these events. By significance, I guess it means the political benefit to the Biden White House.
Uh-huh.
And I will tell you, there are a great many Americans who are understandably deeply concerned about the politicization
of
the Department of Justice under President Joe Biden. It is.
Why? Because you believe the United States Capitol is a target.
It's been 218.
And I mean a Target store, a Target.
Days since we sent you that letter. DOJ refused to answer the letter. Today, when Senator Lee and I asked you about it, your answer to every damn question is, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You're under oath.
Yeah, he doesn't know. Because, again, most of these things they're calling for are state crimes.
You may believe at the Department of Justice that you are unaccountable to the American people, but that is not the case.
Yeah, that's what we're all thinking.
The wildly disparate standards are unacceptable. Ms. Sandberg, I want to turn to the FBI.
And this is the woman that, the Jan 6 part of it, he's going to bring this, the part that Dinesh was referencing, I think.
How many FBI agents or confidential informants actively
or confidential informants. So let's say you're the FBI and you have ongoing investigations into groups like the Proud Boys and the 3 Percenters and Roger Stone and all those crowds, and you have people in field and they know that that 3 of them have been expelled or out or been pulled off, and that there's 3 dudes who are still engaged with some of them and 6 other people who are involved in other parts of the groups, and they're feeding intel because these groups are still domestic terror groups. Why don't you just tell us can you tell us how many FBI agents were involved and are now involved, so these guys can go, yeah, it was Charlie the whole time, and that guy Jake, I didn't believe his bullshit at one point.
Participated in the events of January 6th.
Sir, I'm sure you can appreciate that I can't go into the specifics of sources and methods.
Did any FBI agents or confidential informants actively participate in the events of January 6th?
Or confidential informants. Can you just tell me that who snitched? Were there any snitches? Can we go on a snitch hunt right now? And can you tell me that, a number so that even if they're snitches, I can assume they're FBI agents, so we can use that number to push back on the idea that it wasn't a parade of maggots attacking the Capitol.
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Sir, I can't answer that.
Did any FBI agents
Again, she's not going to answer it yes or no.
Confidential informants commit crimes of violence on January 6th?
I can't answer that, sir.
Did any FBI agent...
Did any confidential... Well, because people have since turned. Are they a CI now? Because they turned and they were released on bail, for example? Same shit.
Agents or FBI informants actively encourage and incite...
He means Ray Epps.
...crimes of violence on January 6th.
And by the way, or confidential informants. And again, this reads into current... who were confidential informants. I mean, you could word this in a way that extricates current confidential informants and says you can answer this out of public if we need to discuss this for their safety and the safety of others. But he, notice how he's playing fast and loose with both of these categories.
Sir, I can't answer that.
She's just not answering any questions on methods.
Ms. Sadburn, who is Ray Epps?
Yeah, right. We're back to Ray Epps.
I'm aware of the individual, sir. I don't have the specific background to him.
Well, There are a lot of people who are understandably very concerned about Mr. Epps.
Yes, they're very concerned about Mr. Ray Epps. He walked up to one of the Proud Boys who instigated the violence and told him to knock it off. This is, I mean, like we've been through, and this is fucking January 11th of this fucking year. This asshole. Hold on. Ray Epps told not to. There we go. Yeah, here you go. This is, when did this come out? Okay, so, prominent Republicans, including former President Donald J. Trump, prominent waistlines, have for months promoted a conspiracy theory that an Arizona man named Ray Epps is a federal informant who helped to instigate the attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Because, look, maggots are stupid. If you tell them to fetch, they fetch. If you tell them to jump, they say how high. And if you tell them to attack the Capitol, they won't go, I'm sorry, as a good American who wants to make America great again, it doesn't involve me storming the breach, killing or stomping, my cops or my own friends and taking a shit in the rotunda. No. The claims made in congressional hearing rooms on Fox News and Mr. Trump's political rallies have largely been based on a video taken just before the violence erupted at the Capitol, showing Mr. Epps at a barricade outside the building, whispering into the ear of a man named Ryan Samsel. We've talked about this before. Within moments of the brief exchange, Mr. Samsel, a Pennsylvania barber, can be seen moving forward and confronting the police in what amounted to be a tipping point of the riot. Despite lacking proof of their claims, many Republicans have surmised that Mr. Epps instructed Mr. Samsel, as a hypnotist, to antagonize the officers. They have also pushed the notion that because Mr. Epps has not been arrested, he must have been working for the government. But for more than a year, well before the name Ray Epps was widely known in right-wing circles, federal authorities have had information from both him and Mr. Samsel. This includes, and this means Cruz had access to this. All these assholes have had access, suggesting that he was not a government agent and did not encourage the younger man to engage with the police that day. Just 2 days after the attack, when Epps saw himself on a list of suspects from January 6th, he called an FBI tip line, which makes him, I guess, a CI now, and told investigators he tried to calm Mr. Samsel down when they spoke, according to 3 people who have heard a recording of the call. Mr. Epps went on to say that he explained to Mr. Samsel that the police outside were merely doing their jobs, the people said. Then in late January of last year, in an interview with the FBI, Mr. Samsel said much the same thing, telling investigators that a man he did not know came up to him at the barricades and suggested he relax. According to the recording of the interview obtained by the New York Times, he came up to me and he said, dude. His entire words were, relax, the cops are doing their job, Mr. Samsel said, which apparently was code, and Mr. Samsel knew the code and knew it was time to attack. Whatever you do, don't say, dude, relax, the cops are just doing their job to a maggot. It sends them into a rage like a red cape to a bull.
On the night of January 5th, 2021, Epps,
by the way, this fucker knew this at this time,
wandered around the crowd that had gathered. And there's video out there of him chanting, tomorrow, we need to get into the Capitol, into the Capitol. This was
crowd's response to Epps. Fed. Right.
Strange behavior, so strange that the crowd began chanting, fed.
Yeah, because they're paranoid assholes.
Fed.
So what? That same crowd the next day was chanting, hang Mike Pence. Are we assuming the same level of astute logical thinking from them?
Ms. Sandburn, was Ray Epps a Fed?
Sir, I cannot answer that question.
The next day, on January 6th.
She can't answer yes or no in any of these questions. That's how it works. That's the process.
Mr. Epps is seen whispering to a person, and 5 seconds later, 5 seconds after he's whispering to a person, that same person begins to forcibly tear down the...
He's the maggot whisperer.
Barricades.
Yes, he says something that Caesar says you never whisper to a dog.
Did Mr. Epps urge them to tear down the barricades?
No.
Sir, similar to the other answers, I cannot answer that.
Shortly thereafter, the FBI put out a public post.
She can't say what he said or what he didn't say because there's an investigation against Samsel. The dude hasn't gone through his trial yet.
Seeking information on individuals connected with violent crimes on January 6th. Among those individuals, in the bottom there, is Mr. Epps. The FBI publicly asked for information, offering cash rewards leading to information leading to the arrest.
Yeah, that's why he called in and said, I told the guy not to do it.
This was posted, and then
the pictures from the night before were part of it.
Later, magically, Mr. Epps disappeared.
Not magically. He called. He saw his fucking face on the news.
From the public posting. According to public records, Mr. Epps has not been charged with anything. No one's explained why a person videoed urging people to go.
Yeah, you can't get arrested for urging people if you have no authority to urge said people. Again, these are the people who want cancel culture to be, they're the book-burning anti-cancel culture people who are worried about free speech. But something the dude whispered, which both men say was, he told me not to do it.
Go to the Capitol.
This is just lazy.
A person whose conduct was so suspect, the crowd believed he was a Fed.
And yet the next day
would magically disappear from the list of people the FBI was looking at.
Or they had cleared him. But they can't say that they cleared him because the other dude's case is still ongoing, and it's part of that.
Ms. Sandburn, a lot of Americans are concerned.
A lot. And by a lot, I mean fewer than the people who are concerned that every time I go to Mexico, the electrical grid in Texas fails.
That the federal government deliberately encouraged illegal and violent conduct on January 6th.
Yeah. Using weaponized gullibility on the part of maggots.
My question to you, and this is not an ordinary law enforcement question, this is a question of public accountability.
Is it?
Did federal agents or those in service of federal agents,
those in service now or before,
actively encourage violent and criminal conduct on January 6th?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Oh, okay. Well, shit. Not to my knowledge. There you go. There's a definite answer at the end of it. Somebody basically said, you're allowed to say, like, that's not giving away, tactics or anything like that. So no.
Thank you.
Right. That could have ended the conversation. Somebody from the legal end of the SBI probably could have leaned over and said, you could say not to my knowledge earlier in it and shut him down. But this let him drag this bullshit on. And again, do you think Dinesh, and we'll finish up with this little piece here. Do you think Dinesh is going to reference her not to my knowledge thing about them engaging in any kind of, and she would know. She would know. And she's under oath. So if she says not to my knowledge, she knows a lot of what they've been investigating this entire time. So she would know if there were people. The parts where she goes, I can't talk about, part of it was ongoing investigations into Samsel, is why she can't talk about Epps.
I can't say. Did the FBI egg anyone on? Can't say. Did the FBI orchestrate it? Can't say.
That wasn't one of the questions. I love how, just make up new questions. Did the FBI orchestrate it? I'm guessing that if Ted Cruz had asked anyone at the FBI, did the FBI orchestrate January 6th? The question would have been no.
Did the FBI itself use violence in order to sort of increase the total sum of violence that occurred that day?
Yeah, to push it over the top. That extra 2 to 3%, that little, that nitrous flick that really sends the engine running.
Can't say. So think of it. The FBI denials here are very telling.
No, they're not. They don't want to talk about ongoing cases or tactics in general, especially when it comes to current CIs who may have been even processed through stuff and are back out in these domestic violence groups getting street cred because they kept their mouth shut and all that kind of stuff. I mean, how many fucking cop shows do we need to watch to know at least partially how this stuff works? Push-ups? Oh, somebody asked for push-ups? Okay.
In a hearing, think of it. The FBI is part of the...
I don't know where my other camera is. Hold on. I'll have to set up a shot.
Executive branch, they're subject to congressional oversight. And the fact that they can't say
They can't say because they will get CIs killed by the maniacs that still pledge allegiance to Trump.
Tells you that the answer is yes. Because if the answer is no, they would have been like, no, the FBI had no role.
No, it isn't. If the answer is no, then the guys would go, oh, we can speak freely to anybody. We're like, no, we don't have to worry about what we're saying. We can move ahead, even if it's like. And again, if you can't, you wouldn't want to lie under oath in that regard and let those guys off the hook. It's not. It's good for those guys to think there might be those among them that might snitch. Just kidding. I just want to spend my bits. Okay, thanks, H2O gods.
Oh, what's
I will. I promise on my honor to do the 10 push-ups when the show's done.
We didn't orchestrate,
and I'll even elevate my feet.
This no FBI agents would never use violence and start smashing windows themselves.
We're going into 2,000 Mules territory, aren't we, Dinesh? Are you going to say that the Proud Boys and the MAGA rioters that smash windows are deep state FBI, even though they're just riding it out in a DC jail?
So all of this is really telling. And then the other big, you may say, elephant in the room, the FBI's role in the Whitmer kidnapping plot, the transfer of Stephen D'Antonio, who had orchestrated that from the FBI. Remember that there were 2 defendants who were set free.
Oh my gosh.
By a jury
who found them too stupid to carry it out.
Acquitted them. Said,
of being morons.
No, this wasn't their fault. This was the FBI's fault. And that same guy who ran that operation has been then transferred to DC in mid-October of 2020. And his office is the lead investigatory agency in the Justice Department's prosecution of more than 800 Americans now charged for their involvement in January 6th.
Okay, so a little over 800 out of somewhere in the order of 3,000 to 5,000 people who stormed the Capitol grounds that day. So I guess the primary question is, and this is what I run like, and this is going to, Daily Co's. This is hold on one second. Has the same issue I have. Who built the gallows? Who exactly built the gallows? That is one question that I hope the January 6th committee is investigating, because I've spent my life in theater and know that that is not an easy spur of the moment thing to erect a gallows complete with hanging noose in front of the U.S. Capitol building. Agreed. So someone had a plan to do that. They had specifications at the ready. They went to Home Depot, purchased the supplies they needed to erect a platform. Hang a noose from it. Not easy to make a noose. Have you ever tried it just such a way so you make an ominous photograph? Asking you, Mr. Former V-POTUS Mike Pence, since it was clearly linked to the Hang Mike Pence chant, are you wondering who purchased the materials, built the platform, hung the noose, took a picture? This had to be planned in advance. So who all was involved in planning and execution this set piece for destroying American democracy? Jan 6 committee, get the Home Depot receipts while you're at it. I agree. Who wrote that? Super Simeon wrote that as a community post at Daily Co's. That has been sticking in my fucking craw. Capital, and this just says, Capital Mob built gallows and chanted Hang Mike Pence. Whoops, hold on, get back up here. This guy right here. Capital Mob built gallows and chanted Hang Mike Pence. I don't know, my screen sticks to the... Okay, there we go. They were never a natural fit, the straight-laced evangelical and brash reality TV star, but for more than 4 years, Trump and Pence made their marriage of political convenience work. Now, in the last days of the administration, each is feeling betrayed by the other. It's part of the fallout from the extraordinary 24-hour stretch in which Pence openly defied Trump. Trump unleashed his fury on the vice president, and a mob of violent supporters, incensed by Trump's rhetoric, stormed the Capitol building and tried to halt the peaceful transfer of power. Pretty raw right now. Pence's decision to advise that he was taken to some of the administration's high-pressure project. Under normal circumstances, the vote tallying procedure and a bizarre interpretation of the law, they argue, okay, blah, blah, blah. Not long after Trump took the stage in front of his supporters at the Stop the Steal rally. If Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. But Trump already knew what Pence intended, and as Trump spoke Pence released a letter to Congress laying out his conclusion the vice president cannot claim unilateral authority to reject states' electoral votes. Not long after that, they arrived at the Capitol where they overwhelmed police, smashed windows. Trump did not call back the thing. Trump supporters hang Mike Pence at the Capitol building. Later, members of the mob outside were chanting this for allies of Pence. Where's the part about how the dynamic? Okay, they don't even say. God damn it. Who built the goddamn gallows? That's what we need to know. That's info number one. There's got to be video out there of these fuckers building this thing. Yeah, they're yelling bring them out. Bring out Mike Pence. Bring them out. Hi, by the way, you're watching HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. Like and subscribe. Give a thumbs up to the show. I mean, I confront some of these videos that other folks, I guess, on our side of things just kind of shy away from or only play little bits of. And I have two problems with only showing little bits of these things. At least at least making it available to watch long form. Is that on the one hand, they can always make the case that you are cutting them out of context and using their words unfairly and describing their meanings, their ethics, their message in a way that is not in line with what actually happened. That's one. The other one is that there is a tacit assumption for whatever reason, and this applies largely to the Trump rallies more than almost any other thing, that if you pick out one crazy moment and show it, the assumption is that the rest of it somehow went on without a hitch or was somehow normal or healthy or functional. When in reality, one of the great things about showing the Trump rallies in full a lot of times is strictly speaking the fact that they're a mess from start to finish. That, yeah, there are blathery moments that are particularly galling or funny, but the rest of it's just kind of repetitive, dull, blathering bullshit. I'll give you a little taste of that right now before we're already out of time, but I will jump in here. This is Trump at the American Freedom Tour in Memphis. I think this was the day after the one we did on Friday. And again, this is just, I'm just doing a needle drop here because we hear this shit all the time. We've all heard this stuff. This is him at this, the American Freedom Tour. I mean, it's hard to even tell what these guys think freedom is.
It's very special. He ran great campaigns, and she loves this state.
He, she, or whatever. I'm glad. Sorry, what was it again?
Thank you, Phil. Did a great job. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. Delbert, thank you. Great job.
By the way, the hair is back to like circa 2015 craziness.
They like him.
They do. They like him. I say things in my observation like old people do. My grandfather, when we were driving around, would always call out gas prices and things that were on signs. Unleaded, $1.49, that kind of thing. You know, like he would go, 2 hamburgers, 99 cents. Like he would just start doing that near the end of when he was getting old. Trump does that a lot. He does a lot of like, I see it, I'm still here.
A friend of mine, somebody who's very special. He ran great campaigns.
A friend of mine, somebody who's very special. He ran great campaigns.
And she loves this.
And she loves. I mean, talk about, maybe there, is this Trump going woke?
State very, very much. Cindy Hyde-Smith.
He, she, Sydney Hyde-Smith. It's like a Jekyll and Hyde thing, but with gender.
Cindy, thank you. Thank you, Cindy, wherever you are. There she is. That's a good location. And the mayor of South Haven, Darren Musselwhite. Darren,
Bueller, Fry.
Thank you.
When Cameron was in Egypt's land, let my Cameron go.
Thank you, Darren, very much. Great to have you here. Thanks as well to each and every one of you for your unwavering devotion and all of the great things you've done to MEGA, Make America Great Again, the greatest movement in the history of our country.
Yes, the greatest movement. Fuck the founding fathers or the greatest generation fighting World War II or freedom riders or the civil rights movement, suffrage. Pfft. Nothing compares to a dwindling, flailing, violent subculture of right-wing thought.
We call it a common sense movement, right?
He's been throwing this in, the common sense idea, the idea that we just want simple things. And then the list gets really odd.
We want low taxes, we want security, we want strong military, we want all these things. We want to protect our Second Amendment, which, by the way, is under siege, as you probably noticed.
Yeah, probably noticed.
All these things, he said, we want our freedom back. We want freedom of speech.
Yes, he said, I heard that guy say, we want our freedom back. We want our freedom of speech, says the man on a tour in front of a microphone that the government is not trying to stop at all.
All things, common sense. It's all common sense. We don't want crime in our cities. We want to be strong. We want to take care of our great law enforcement, policemen.
As opposed to the other kind of policemen?
Firemen. We want to take care of our people.
Our law enforcement firemen.
It's all common sense. You know what it's really? It's really called America First. That's what it's called. Maybe more than anything else. To get
more than MAGA, more than Save America, more than, it's like, I'm always shopping for the best phrase. Basically, why pay for focus groups when I can just focus group everything whenever I'm talking?
Together, we've already accomplished more than anyone thought possible. And you know what? We're just getting started.
Yes, everyone's amazed you became president. No, and no one's amazed that you were a one-termer.
This is just getting started.
It was just getting started. I'm revving it up. Here we go.
With your help, we passed the largest tax cuts and regulation cuts in American history. We achieved American energy independence and even dominance. We got gas down to $1.87
Yeah, and all it took was no one going anywhere.
Gallon.
Look at him, he's like, I got no credit for that. I mean, there was nowhere to drive to, but, you know, you could get there, you could get nowhere cheaply. So, shouldn't I?
Think of that.
Think of that, man. Ugh.
Remember I said gasoline's going to be $6, $7, $8, $9.
Yeah, it's almost as if you knew Putin was going to attack.
He said he doesn't know what he's talking about. Guess what? Take a look at what's happening today.
Guess
and
what?
It's going up a lot higher.
Actually, oil's coming down.
We created the greatest economy the world has ever seen. We had things going like nobody's ever seen.
And then you ignored the threat of COVID and the idea that a pandemic could hit, and you just blew it. You fucking blew it.
Then the plague came in from China.
Yes, and you delayed responding to it because you wanted to finish your China trade deal.
From China.
And then in the middle of it, while Americans were in food lines, you sold China the largest order of beef, pork, soybeans, and corn in our history that they are stockpiling, apparently, so that they can attack Taiwan now. That's the idea. By the way, they're not. All that grain has already rotted or been eaten.
And then we did it again, and we handed it off. We had a bad election. We had a rigged and stolen election.
He's got to throw that in for legal reasons.
We handed it off. We handed it off to this group, and they rode our coattails for a year and a half, and now...
Yeah, that's what they did. They rode your coattails out of Afghanistan, where you were going to stay forever, and right into Infrastructure Week. Right, rode his coattails right out of Infrastructure Week.
You see, it's all coming down. Took a little while. You know, it doesn't just happen overnight. It's all coming down.
Oh, so you're saying like the trend up in the beginning of your presidency was left over from the Obama years? Is that what you're saying, till the policy kicks in?
We did it with no inflation and low interest rates. We created 7 million.
Dude wanted negative interest rates with the Fed. Like he was trying to muscle Powell into going negative, literally, where we would spend money to print money.
Million new jobs, a record. We had a record 164 million people working.
And then a bunch of them died.
Far more than we have today. We achieved the
Yeah, well, wages have gone up, so not everybody has to work as much as they used to.
largest poverty reduction in 50 years. We lifted 7 million people off of food stamps.
Kicked, but sure.
We lifted 10 million people out of welfare. Think of that, 10 million people.
Or they did it themselves. I mean, again, I guess government is responsible for human beings' success.
We rebuilt entirely. It was a mess. Unfortunately, they gave 85 billion of it away to the Taliban. We rebuilt.
No, they didn't.
The United States military, modernized our nuclear forces. We have the strongest, most powerful nuclear. We had weapons that were 45 years old. We didn't even know if they worked. Hope to God we never have to use them. But with what's going on right now and with the way our people are leading this country, you could end up in a World War III. Don't kid yourself. We created.
Oh, so do we get points if we don't end up in World War III, at least it being a nuclear hot war? I would argue this is World War III, but it's because the world is engaged in it, it's a war. But that it's not a nuclear war. Do we get to hang this over him like the whole, like Obama told me that we were going to have a nuclear war with Korea and we didn't have one?
Did something very important. Space Force, first time in 78 years since Air Force.
It's Ass Force, by the way.
We built almost all of the border wall, hundreds and hundreds.
We built almost all of the border wall. You mean the 47 miles of it?
Hundreds of miles, including substantial additions that.
Substantial, 47. Actually, it might be less than that. Hold on one second. Let me see. Let's see. Let's see if I can open this guy up right here. Yeah, here you go. Find this right here. There you go. This is the how much wall? New primary wall in place of dilapidated or outdated designs. Primary wall and secondary wall. 351 miles and 22 miles. So basically rebuild it. Again, taking fencing and putting wall where it was, or just repairing. This is a constant part of it. A lot of it was money allocated during the Obama years anyways. New primary wall in locations where no barriers previously existed. 738 miles of it was funded. So they funded 281 miles of it. They completed 47 miles. New secondary wall. They completed 33 miles. Let's see, 40 miles of new primary and there you go. 40 miles of new primary and secondary border wall system in place of dilapidated and outdated signs in the San Diego, El Centro, and El Paso sectors. 49 million for 34 border wall gates in the RGV sector. Okay, 10 gates are complete. So there's 24 gates that weren't done. Let's see, 1.3 billion for 78 miles. Not 1.9 billion for 85 miles for 2019. This is 2018, 2019. I mean, this is all repair money that's always ongoing. CBP's fiscal year 2020 funding includes 1.3 for 69 miles of new primary border wall system in a location where no barriers currently existed within Webb and Zapata counties in the Laredo sector. Panels are anticipated to begin in early 2021, assuming real estate is cleared, meaning they either buy the land or use eminent domain to claim it from Americans. And again, Donald Trump is the first president since I believe the Mexican-American War to preside over Mexico getting American ground. He split private land with one of his wall sections and gave a chunk of land to Mexico. Yeah, he didn't go completely around the American property. He went right in the middle of it, meaning that the wall is the separating point. That is now Mexican land. Congratulations, Mexico. Enjoy your new little slivers of land that Trump gave you.
We never even planned to build. We got it finished. And 3 weeks of work, they would have completed the additions. And
the additions. The other gates, you mean?
They didn't want to do that. Can you believe it? We stood up to Iran, Russia, China like no president in history. We just
we let them start building nuclear, weapons again.
Destroyed the ISIS territorial caliphate one.
Yeah, you just spread them out all over. ISIS-K, of course, was who killed our soldiers in Afghanistan. Clearly not wiped out.
100% destroyed. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, as a caliphate, except for the ones that are still there.
And we even created the Abraham Accords. We even created peace in the Middle East.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know it, but the Middle East is completely at peace right now. Of course, FIFA did the exact same thing because it's just countries that aren't at war with Israel.
Think of it. Nothing's happened since we started the Abraham Accords.
No, nothing's happened. I mean, basically, Saudi Arabia and Yemen aren't fighting. The Syrians aren't. Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. 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 I'm going to find the page on this one. Hold on. Let's see. 1 second. There's so much of it. There you go. Let's see. This is the current state of things. Sudan coup between structural violence and uncertainty. Humiliating plea. Biden criticized for asking Israel to avoid civilian casualties, I'm guessing. How now this became the hub for Israeli settler violence. The Middle East next conflict is likely lurking in the water. The Christian East is bigger than you know and worth... Okay, Israeli mainly to blame for Palestine conflict, says UN report. Ukraine war is changing people's attitudes towards refugees. That's because they're going to go back as soon as there's a difference in resettlement refugees versus temporary refugees. This is the target assassination. This idea that they the Israeli soldiers killed this Al Jazeera reporter. Understanding global political violence, implicated to resolve the conflict. Management top envoy. Israeli police training reduced from 7 months to 7 weeks. Other people's mail. Blah blah. UN warns of wider conflict in the Middle East. This is 6 days ago. Let's see. What is the UN worried about? I mean, it's obviously there's peace in the Middle East, so it's obviously garbage. Broader conflict in the Middle East. Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres, expressed his alarm at an escalation in violence and hostile rhetoric across the region in recent weeks against the backdrop of reports of bombing of the airport of the Syrian capital of Damascus. According to Stephanie Dujarric, a UN spokesman, the Secretary General warned of the dangers of miscalculation could lead to a broader conflict in an already volatile region. Guterres added, according to the statement by the United Nations spokesman Stephanie Dujarric, that direct attacks against civilians and civilian facilities is strictly prohibited under international humanitarian law. He called on all parties to exercise maximum restraint to avoid further escalation. I mean, it's peace. I mean, it might as well be peace.
People thought it was a modern day miracle.
No, they didn't.
But they have
again, that there are going to be commercial flights between Israel and the UAE.
And taken the leadership that was necessary to add another 10 countries. You could have added them very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of the countries, we did the hard part, the 3 countries that weren't in active war with Israel and didn't really give a shit because we promised them $50 billion in military aid. More than we're giving Ukraine, by the way, currently. We offered Qatar and these other countries $50 billion apiece to be friendly with Israel. Meanwhile, arming them so that at any point they're like, you know what, fuck it. They've got all the weapons they would need to end Israel.
We're waiting online. Under our leadership,
they're waiting online.
The border was
now serving D41. Hello. There's a ticking I don't know. Do I have time?
Secure, our communities were safe, our country was strong.
Our communities were safe, especially during the summer of 2020.
And the world was calm, despite the fact that every day I had a new witch hunt started against me. And
the world was calm, wasn't it, though?
America was respected like it was never respected before.
Again, fuck you, greatest generation. Fuck you, World War II winning generation. Like,
we were respected as a country. But in just 17 months, Joe Biden...
By the way, this asshole thinks he was more important than... I mean, never mind the fact, you know, of what Democrats have accomplished. Like, period. But Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Like that part, like Trump thinks his 4 years were more important than that moment.
Biden and the radical left have turned calm into chaos, prosperity into poverty, and security into a total catastrophe.
You couldn't stay with the alliteration?
The election was a horrible thing that took place. A horrible thing. You see it. Everybody sees it. It's out there. It's out there to look at. And we can never let this happen again. And we have to continue to look. We have so much proof. You ever see where they say the big lie?
This is true.
That was no lie.
I like this guy. You have to listen to this part of the real guy. Leave this guy alone, okay? What I'm saying.
Lie was what they were doing. That was the big.
That's right. There's a lie inside the lie. This is what we do in the old KGB days. You'd wrap the lie inside another lie, interwoven with several lies, and also in phyllo dough and dipped in baba ganoush. It's lovely.
Lie.
Here's yes.
And in fact.
By the way, do you like my long, luscious hair now? I've been growing my hair and fingernails. I have gone full Howard Hughes. I am drinking my own urine out of masonry jars. But don't worry, I'm completely sane and they've taken the button away from me.
Big story from 2 days ago that CNN
Huge.
Has put a clamp.
A clamp. Clamp. Sponge. They put the clamp. They put a cock ring on the phrase.
On ever using the term the big lie, because I think they're worried about the legal liability.
Oh, you mean the part where the guy said he prefers Trump lie? I mean, you should appreciate the power of branding, my friend.
Of using that term, because I think they realize it wasn't a big lie.
Yes, that's why. That's why they want to call it Trump lie. Or Trump's election lie. Big lie is too broad.
They're not allowed to use the term the big lie.
Actually, they are. I mean, I tried. But you don't have the same control in U.S. as I have on... Like if I tell my press, you cannot say war. You can only call it special military operation. I'm sorry, I can't even say it without. I honest to God, I start giggle and I fart a little bit. I'm so excited.
On fake news CNN anymore, which is it's a reason.
It's a reason, yes. Do you smell almonds, my friend?
And under this leadership, our country is being destroyed.
That's just weird. It's being destroyed. Destroyed.
Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of our country. He is now...
It's amazing that the worst president in our history managed to get infrastructure done. What does that mean to you? Look at this dude. You have to understand, and again, don't let this guy get you riled up. Because look how miserable this fucker is. This doesn't feel good for him to say. Like, he's not spiking the ball. Like, this dude is broke and fucked. Look at his face. Every time he brings up Biden, brings up the election, says this rigged bullshit, he knows he's covering his ass legally. He doesn't buy it for a fucking second. But also, he's miserable. He does that big, like, mouth breathing thing that he does. Shit.
Now turning out to be a combination of Jimmy Carter,
who's a great man and a good and decent fellow,
and Herbert Hoover. Has anyone looked at the stock market?
Has
Well, let's look at the stock market. Hold on one second. It's good. Stock market. Let's see, where's our... Hey. There you go, the NASDAQ. Yeah, there we go. With the Dow, what the heck? Dividends. No, that's not good. It looks terrible. Hold on, that's the NASDAQ. It's up. Hold on. Yes, I would like to, if I may, Your Honor, may I present the stock market? This is the current state of the stock market. This is Trump years. There you go, Trump years. And then this is the Trump years, and this giant take a shit. And then we go ruffling back to basically even, and then Biden takes over, and frow. Right now it's at like, 30, 29, something like that. Yeah, 30, 68. It's like, it'll drop below 30 because they're trying to correct it to get back. They want on this trajectory, like right about here. This spike, everything was overvalued anyway, so the Fed is trying to keep it like here, this kind of deal. And again, the stock market doesn't track to its actual worth. But this is, where's 12/9/2020? Let's see, it is. Yeah, here's the boink. This is November 4th, 2020. This is when, the election happened. 27,847. And right now it's up to like, there you go, 3K. There you go. And obviously spiked way up here in January. It was at 36. Do you anybody want to go back and look at all the 2019 due for a correction conversations? Let's see, 2019. Hold on, I gotta put this in here. Let's do 2018. Stocks due for correction. Here's Trump in office. You want to just compare U.S. stocks post worst year in a decade after the S&P falls more than 6% in 2018. Look at this dude. He's having a rough morning. Stocks had a rough 2018. Here's what 5 strategists say to expect in 2019. Wall Street concluded a tumultuous 2018 on Monday as the major stock indexes posted their worst yearly performances since the financial crisis. After solid gains on Monday, the Dow Industrial Average went down 6.2% and 5.6% respectively. I guess the NASDAQ is meant to be there. For 2018, both indexes logged their biggest annual losses since 2008, when they plunged 38.5% and 33.8% respectively in 2008. By the way, look at where they are now, even with that crash. Just saying. The NASDAQ composite lost 3.9% in 2018, its worst year in a decade when it dropped 40%. The S&P, so the last worst thing was, there you go. And this is before COVID. Yeah. So basically every 2 years of the Trump administration, the stocks took a shit. Remember how great it was? We had the greatest ever. And they rode our coattails for the first year. That would be 2017 for him. And then once their policies kicked in, everything, you can see what they're really all about. Meanwhile, 2018.
Has anybody looked at the stock market lately?
Yes, it's still up over where it was when you left office. Even in spite of all the challenges.
Like most of the people in the room. Biden's disasters are...
His disasters.
too numerous to even count.
Just give us a fire away. Let's hear it. Biden's disasters. Line them up.
Inflation is the highest in nearly half a century. And
inflation is highest in nearly half a century. Inflation. Okay. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see what let's go with news. Fed hikes rates by most in nearly 30 years while raising inflation forecasts and lowering economic growth estimates. Fed sees inflation topping 5% in 2022 and then falling. Oh, here you go. This is what the Fed is trying to do without you in office. Fed sees inflation topping 5% in 2022 and then falling rapidly due to higher rates. Also, because they think it's largely based on monetary policy, and it ain't. It's also going to fuck with liquidity. Unemployment expected to rise in the U.S. economy is slow due to higher rates. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday predicted U.S. inflation would exceed 5% by the end of 2022, much higher than its most recent forecast, underscoring its more aggressive strategy in raising rates. They went 75 basis points, 0.75%, to a range of 1.5 to 1.75. It marks the biggest rate increase in 28 years. Again, the Fed rate is at 1.75%. Is that not pathetically small? What was the Fed? I want to see real quick. What was the Fed rate? In 1978. Yeah, there you go. The Fed raised federal fund rates from 6.9% in 1978 to 10% by the end of the year. And can I point out here? See this little phrase right here? Hold on, shit. I gotta bring this page down off of here and move it over. Oil shock of 1978-79. Does that say monetary policy shock? Did the Fed raise rates from 6.9% to 10% in a year, which triggered a recession, as we know? What caused that? Remember when I was saying every time you find inflation, every time you find like the Fed responding to inflation with a raising of rates, what preceded it every fucking time? A spike in oil prices. Every fucking time. At least in the last 70 years. Oil shock, 1978 to 79. By the way, like and subscribe. This is HAL Sparks Mega Worldwide. I know I'm getting into the deep reads and I'm going over time. I'll stop. I'm not going to do the whole Trump thing tonight. But I think this is a good way to end it. A lot of people will talk about inflation caused by monetary policy. There's too much liquidity, too much money in the system, and therefore Americans are willing to spend too much on items, and therefore stores are racing to gather up that profit of those extra dollars floating around. Nobody thinks that's the case right now. The idea that there's too much money floating around, and you might have been able to make that argument when I was still going in the end, like in late 2020, early 2021, that there was so much money floating around in the system, sitting there that, that stores were like, I can grab a little bit of this because this is going to go away soon. So I want to get these UI dollars quickly. So they jacked up prices in the prospect. Had nothing to do with that. It's supply shock. What's the biggest driver of the inflation cost right now? Primarily energy. Why? Because oil prices have climbed like crazy. Why? Because they took a shit in 2020 and the companies are trying to make up for that profit. You could say it's price gouging or whatever, but if you even it out between what people were paying when they couldn't go anywhere or what the price was when it dropped off to literally where they were paying people $30 a barrel to just take it off their hands. Here, I'll give you $30 if you just fucking take this barrel of oil away from me, because you have to keep the pipes flowing. If it gets backed up and we run out of storage, we're fucked. Can't just shut it off like a spigot and then turn it back on. It doesn't work that way. And like its 73-74 predecessor, the second oil shock of the 70s was associated with events in the Middle East. Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. The primary reason why, by the way, as we continue to have demand destruction for oil in the United States, both by producing more of our own and driving down demand in consumer cars specifically. That process is making the Middle East less important to us. It's partly why we're moving away from that entire region, why we're caring less about it, with the exception of sprawling security concerns. Back then, this is when all these decisions were made. This is what, when everybody's like, we were fucking around with Iran, we were fucking around with Iraq, all these war for oil. This is Americans at that time. When these decisions are being made, this is what's happening to the American economy, grinding to a fucking halt. And the OPEC nations knew that they could affect us politically. They could change the sitting president just by tightening the spigot or opening it up. It became in the national security of interests of the United States of America to stop using this kind of fuel for commuter cars. That alone would do it. If we just have commuter cars, either hybrids where they cut the amount of oil and gas they used in half, or we shift entirely to electric where they use none and you can use the grid to get it, where you have a myriad of ways that you can produce it, either through gas power plants, coal power plants, or nuclear power plants, where the spread of that is much better for the environment, even when it's centrally located in power plants, than in all these cars puking this shit out and on every block and every street corner in America. If anybody remembers what cars in the late 70s used to be like as far as smog, holy shit. But you could undermine the American economy. You could control politicians and the direction of American policy just by turning that spigot. And you still can to some degree, because all along the way, Republicans have been fighting us getting off the oil tit every chance they get, because they see it undermining the economic strength of Texas specifically, because that's where they make most of they're in that game, and therefore that's the primary thing. There is not a lot of like industrial or like chemical and technological advances coming out of Texas. It's largely oil and trade based, Gulf based transport and Mexican, American business transactions, and largely oil and gas, right? And now new fracking, which is why like there's earthquakes all over the fucking place. Which I personally believe that this is what you get for letting Californians move in. Here you go. Let's see. Here you go. Earthquakes in Texas doubled in 2021. Scientists cite years of oil companies injecting sludgy water underground. Derp. All right. So every time you look at a major inflation jack in this country, it is always preceded by oil shock of one form or another. Every fucking time. And this time and 2008 are no different. Like its 1973-74 predecessor, the second oil shock of the 70s was associated with events in the Middle East, but it was also driven by strong global oil demand. The Iranian Revolution began in early 1978 and ended a year later when the royal reign of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi collapsed and Sheikh Khamenei took control as Grand Ayatollah of the Islamic Republic. In conjunction with the revolution, Iranian oil output declined by 4.8 million barrels per day. That's almost exactly the amount of oil per day that has stopped because of the Russian war. They're at 5 million barrels a day. It's like the same fucking number. More than... Oil prices began to rise rapidly in mid-1979, more than doubling between April 1979 and 1980. That's exactly what happened 21 to 22, almost doubling. According to one estimate, surging oil demand coming from both booming global economy and a sharp increase in precautionary demand was responsible for much of the increase in the cost of oil during the crisis. Because there was a shortage, the United States overbought. This is before we had an output of our own. Through early 1978, the Federal Reserve had maintained a highly accommodative stance on monetary policy, hoping to combat rising unemployment. Ultimately, though, the policy showed little success in stifling the deterioration in the unemployment rate and likely fostered an environment that allowed the rising energy prices to be transmitted into more general inflation. That's because they have no control over the spigot. The Fed has no control over supply. In a supply and demand equation, the Fed has no part in any of it. The only thing they can limit is, and watch, they'll raise the price of this. It will cause the cost of borrowing money to go up. And when oil companies who haven't yet recovered from 2020, who are trying to do more exploration, open more wells and all that kind of shit, because right now they are opening more wells. And I know I'm going to get on another tear, but unfinished wells priority oil. Let's see if we get this. Let's see, news. Yikes, that's funny. Hold on. Like a new tab. I literally was watching this. It might be, there's a 6.0 earthquake off the Taiwan coast yesterday. Oh, the Chinese had one of their subs exploded. I'm kidding. Let's see. Well, priority oil price. Let's see. Where are these? Natural gas. I don't. Okay, this is way overseas. Okay, this is other stuff. It's going to be on Bloomberg. I have to find it. Son of a bitch. This is this is what happens. All right, here we go. Sign in. There you go. Shit. Come on. Hold on. Here we go. I'm searching for something. Give me 1 second. Wells unfinished. I think it's in here. Industrial strength capital spending. Okay, this might be in this thing. Whoops, get out of here. Newsletter. 5 things to start your day. It might be in this piece. So forgive me if it's not. This is it. The Fengxia and Mingchuan Navy frigates at ceremony commission of the 2 Perry-class guided missiles from the U.S. into Taiwan Navy. Okay, there we go. U.S. rejects China's declaration of the Taiwan Strait. Long-term crypto investors are bailing out. Hong Kong lawyers are cracking down larger. Here's what you need to know. Dire Strait. Panic stations. Crypto market crumbling. One-way trip. Inflation woes. Stocks sentiment markets remain fragile. Under a Federal Reserve determined to tame inflation, equity futures rose for Japan but dipped for Australia, Hong Kong, while S&P NASDAQ contracts edged up in early Asian trading. Volatility is likely to continue to whipsaw markets as inflation remains elevated and investors fret that assets have further to decline. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said unacceptably high prices are likely to stick with the consumers through 2022, which expects the U.S. economy to slow down. Rule of law. Huge oil refining capacity sits idle in China even as prices soar. That's not a mistake. While the love adults who love toys, Macron set to lose after a big rail strike. Opinion quietly delivering on his bipartisan promise. Garfield's interest today. Where's the bottom? They're looking at the stocks. Son of a bitch. Okay, earlier today I was looking at a Bloomberg thing. I'll post it later on. My bad. But basically, oil companies are instead of investing in new wells, they are finishing unfinished wells, and that process is quicker and will get things more online faster, but it will get it back up to standard. We're shy of like maybe 300,000 barrels a day, shy of full American production from where we were in 2018, for example. That's that we're still edging towards that. And it'll take new wells to get beyond that and get us up on the arc that we were on. I will find that article later because it's buried. So there you go. Carter administration's decision to appoint Paul Volcker as Fed chairman in August 79 was a strong endorsement of using more aggressive monetary policy. The Volcker myth is the idea that monetary policy is what caused this inflation. It's always been bullshit. It's continually bullshit. And arguably, Powell is trying to be Volcker too. They're all buying the same Volcker idea. Though the Fed's resolve under Volcker was effective in reducing inflation, the monetary contraction combined with the impact from the oil price shock pushed the economy into the most severe recession since the Great Depression and spurred strong popular opposition. Yeah, because they didn't have anything to do with the actual inflation numbers. It was all because of the cost of oil. And they have no effect on that. So what they did was they fucked every other aspect of prices. Anyway, but go find me an inflation spike that was, genuinely felt and was part of the conversation, not like some variant. Go find me a specific moment in American history that was we had inflation pressure or a recession pop up where the Fed had to drive us into a recession to tame inflation that wasn't preceded by an oil shock. You won't find it. And on that note, grumble, grumble. I will see you guys tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow I don't have a morning show, but I will be up and live tweeting the congressional January 6th committee's hearings and watching those, and as I'm sure many of you will, and we'll address some of the things that came up at the beginning of tomorrow's show, and then we'll get into our our response clips where you'll see more and more freak out coming. And Trump is becoming increasingly a sweaty mess about a lot of this shit, and is effectively finding himself in a position where he has to clamor about this stuff to protect himself because the day is coming. Whether it's Georgia, whether it's his financial woes in New York, whether it's actually the DOJ getting a referral rather from the January 6th committee that puts him in legal jeopardy, one of those is coming home to roost. And since he's fighting on all three, his lawyers are apparently doing triple duty on all of them. The hearings tomorrow are 9 a.m. their time, I believe. So it'll be early my time, 6. So I'll be up and, chit-chatting about it early, watching it. But yeah, there is no morning show tomorrow. It's only on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. For those of you that are interested, that's the Hal Sparks Mornings Mega Worldwide. And I have that, interestingly enough, normally because I have my trainer, but she has COVID, so I don't have a trainer tomorrow. So I'm going to live tweet the committee hearings because Midas Touch is carrying them live. I don't want to overlap with those guys. They're wonderful. And then I'm going to, you want to be a decent guy. Those guys are decent guys. I want to be a decent guy to those decent guys. Hold on one second. Let me get in here. And so I can see if I can send you guys over to, I don't know if the major is up, but we shall see what we shall see. Nope, he's not on right now. He'll probably be on tomorrow, so I will we'll raid him tomorrow afternoon after the show. But until then, take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And remember, vote.org. Just look at vote.org. Send that to everyone. Anytime you're complaining about any issue at all, I implore you, if you are tweeting something, if you are messaging something on Facebook or any other site that you're on that allows you to put links and you're saying something. You don't have to do it for every single tweet. But if you're tweeting about an issue you care about, tag vote.org. Just put vote.org on there. Their website will come up, attached to the bottom of it. To remind people to check their registration, make sure they're registered to vote, and get prepared to vote. You've got that extra space. It always, Twitter especially, always allows you to add a link and it doesn't eat into the number of characters you're saying. Throw that on there, please. Consider that. And again, start talking to your friends about, whether you're going to do a caravan to vote or you're going to, if anybody needs a lift at work to go vote and come back, if there's like a tag team, if everybody wants to have if you want to, have a raffle, anybody who comes back with their I voted sticker can get in a little thing to win a prize just for voting. Doesn't matter who you voted for, just that you did it. Make sure you say that. Those kind of things, and it's random. You're totally legally safe, but the idea is to get people motivated again in every way that you can. But that one element because you can always add that. You can always add a URL to the end of your tweet. If you put vote.org, it will automatically populate your tweet with the link, with a little like graphic and everything. So that always helps. And hammer that on anybody who votes like halfway. Anybody who's like protest voting or saying, I'm not sure, I need to be inspired, needs to get a solid tongue lashing in a bad way. I mean, there's obviously a good way to do a tongue lashing, but we'll see how they vote in that case. But the reality is there's too many issues that are too important this time around to mess around with it all. And we need a turnout that if we have a turnout that's equal to Biden, the Republicans do not have a chance. And they're already dissipated. So, they're already having their own issues. Let's not join them. Solidarity, always moving forward. Every win is good. Always get points on the board. Never give up. Never surrender. Galaxy Quest. All right. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And those of you that are watching the committee, I look forward to chit-chatting with you on Twitter as well. Okay, take care. I'll see you soon. Tell all your fellow Swedes, I love Let the Right One In, and our bass player Victor in Nerd Halen is awesome. Thank you for loaning him to us, and welcome to NATO. Thanks, Spud. Thanks, Jeffrey. Thanks, Mysterious Monolith. We had 1,200 plus people on a Monday. I'm drawing a crowd. I mean, some of them are trolls, but that's fun. Thank you again, Spud. Thanks, Eggs5. No more.